Chapter 35-49. Yes, I know this. It should be the secret of the 5-chi righteous thunder. Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded. This secret was also a big question in his heart. Green-robed Xiaohua said again. Yes. Now, my nascent soul can already condense its body and condense its Tao foundation in the 5-chi righteous thunder. But I have doubts again. Why can the 5-chi righteous thunder condense the nascent soul's body and let it grow quickly, but why can't the lightning produced by the immortal execution stage in my space? Even the lightning tribulation and so on that fellow Taoist experienced before, also can't? Jade Archive Xiaohua touched his nose and said with a bitter smile. This heavenly thunder looks the same, but I'm afraid it's divided into many types. I remember before in Star Picking Tower, didn't I also hear about heavenly thunder and earthly thunder? Gung Xian metal thunder, Xinyu metal thunder, Jia Yu wood thunder, Bing Ding fire thunder, and Wu Ji earth thunder. The 5-chi righteous thunder might be different from the lightning tribulation and other heavenly thunder, right? Not necessarily. Green-robed Xiaohua stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. A ball of lightning appeared in his palm. The lightning flashed and countless mysteries were annihilated. Even the Jade Archive Xiaohua couldn't see through it with a glance. This poor Taoist knows that the birth of lightning and the destruction of lightning is the beginning of life. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is also born along with the lightning strikes. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth seems to be dead, or it could be said that it is lifeless. It doesn't have the vitality of heaven and earth like the noble qi. This is also the difference between my Dao sect's divine ability and Confucian's divine ability. Then why is there life in the righteous qi? It should be related to the 5-chi, right? It should also be related to Confucian's 5-chi unification, right? Yes, Jade Archive Xiaohua naturally understood what green-robed Xiaohua said. He nodded and said, although my Dao sect also pays attention to the 5 elements, Dao sect's 5 elements are all over the world. Confucian's 5 elements are in the body. Since it's in the body, it's alive, not dead. Dao sect emphasizes the 5 elements, Confucian cultivators emphasize the 5-chi. Although they both involve metal, wood, water, fire and earth, there's an essential difference. Perhaps there's no essential difference, but at the peak of cultivation, there's an essential difference. Green-robed Xiaohua continued. Sometimes, the myriad streams may not return to the origin. We haven't obtained the true 5-chi's unification yet, so we can't make a generalization. Jade Archive Xiaohua shook her head. Fellow Taoist, have you ever wondered what the yuan of the 5-chi's unifications is? Is it the yuan of the vital energy of heaven and earth? The yuan of the spirit-slaying vital light? Yuan is the origin of the heavens, the central meaning. When the 5-chis gather in the origin, it means that the 5-chis take the form of auspicious clouds and condense at the top of the head, revealing the supreme divine ability. However, the green-robed Xiaohua shook his head. I also had the same thought before I took control of my nascent soul and received the baptism of the 5-chi's righteous thunder. However, after witnessing the boundless vitality of a nascent soul under the effects of the 5 elements' righteous thunder, I no longer think so. Fellow Taoist, you mean that this yuan is one? Xiaohua frowned, and his eyes flashed with a 5-colored brilliance. That's right. The green-robed Xiaohua nodded. From the perspective of my Taoism, it is Tao begets one. Yuan was life. Life and death. His. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. Rumble. The wind and clouds in the entire space began to violently change, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. Fellow Taoist, what you said earlier about when the 5-chis gather in the origin, it means that the 5-chis take the form of auspicious clouds and condense at the top of the head, revealing the supreme divine ability was also explained from the perspective of my Taoism's pursuit of divine ability. The green-robed Xiaohua continued. Fellow Taoist, have you ever thought that all the cultivation paths in this world might not necessarily be the pursuit of divine ability, might not necessarily be the pursuit of power, and might not necessarily be the pursuit of longevity? If all of them were like the Taoism's pursuit of power and bravery, wouldn't this world be simple? Would it not be gorgeous and colorful? Fellow Taoist, think again about that little thunder and the insect eggs under our feet. Why haven't they awakened after the separation of yin and yang? That little thunder also awakened after going out and being bombarded by the 5 Qi's righteous thunder, right? Boom! The entire space seemed to have suddenly turned dark, and then suddenly brightened. Xiaohua cried out involuntarily. Could it be that the path of Confucian cultivation is the path of life? The goal of Confucian cultivation. Then the mystery of the heavenly book is not the divine ability to reach the heavens, but the profound life? Now that Confucian cultivation has given birth to 100 schools of thought, did they all cultivate wrongly? Or were they all misunderstood by others? After they annihilated my Taoism, they envied the power of my Taoism's magic and pursued the effects of magic? If so, then it can explain why the noble spirit has vitality and why Xian can't understand the heavenly book even though he has it. If Confucian cultivation is life, then what about death? Xiaohua frowned again. Could it be the Buddhist sect? Death? The green-robed Xiaohua shrugged and laughed. Although the Buddhist sect can interfere with the 6 paths of reincarnation and emphasize reincarnation cultivation, if you say they cultivate the path of death, I don't think so. Only the yin side of the space beneath us has the qualifications to say the word death. Then what is the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation? Xiaohua didn't understand. The green-robed Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You have to ask that baldy up there. He recites Buddhist scriptures every day and has already formed a 5th grade golden lotus. I'm afraid he will soon reach the 9th grade. At that time, even if you don't ask him, Mahavairakana will come to find you and tell you the foundation of the Buddhist sect in person, right? Yes. Xiaohua understood. The Buddhist scriptures and dharma of the exquisite temple were the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation. Moreover, he also knew that the Saraira of the Buddhist sect should be the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation. However, he didn't know what the Saraira was used for. Although the dark clouds are thick and the night is bleak, the sun and light will always appear. Everything will be revealed one day. Xiaohua raised his head slightly and pointed his finger. The clouds in the sky scattered and the sky opened. It was a sunny day. The green-robed Xiaohua took a deep breath and said with a smile, "This space is still the best. I can do whatever I want. Being in that nascent soul's body is really suffocating. Fellow Taoist, don't be lazy." Xiaohua stretched and said, "Although our future is bright, we have also provoked a lot of trouble. Louis, Wang Bianfei, Qin Xiaoyao and the others seem to have a problem with the seal of the spiritual aura sky. We have to hurry up and cultivate." Fine. The green-robed Xiaohua quickly waved his hand. "I was just forced to work by you. I just rested for a moment, and you're noisy again. Why don't you find someone else?" "Who else is there?" Xiaohua smiled bitterly, looked at the sky and said, "Fellow Taoist, heavenly law is like a dream, I can't find his trace. Fellow Taoist, karma is like a huge monster, never listening to us. Fellow Taoist, soul cultivator specializes in guarding the mysterious dark clouds. Fellow Taoist, Long Mai controls fate and cultivates different from us. Fellow Taoist, Confucian cultivator is now immersed in the 5 Qi's unification and wants to uncover the mystery of Confucian cultivator. Fellow Taoist, Buddhist cultivator, oh, I'm afraid he can't be called fellow Taoist anymore. He should be bitterly cultivating Buddhist Dharma, wanting to achieve Namomathriya Buddha. Fellow Taoist, Phoenix body is free, but he cultivates heavenly law embodiment technique and heavenly body empowerment technique, so he can't enter the space. Fellow Taoist, do you think I can order him around? Moreover, he is also tempering his bones and practicing the Big Dipper magical fist. That light escape technique is the foundation of our cultivation. There are 10 of us, can we split it? Alas, fellow Taoist, if you knew this, why didn't you split a few more primordial spirits?" The green-robed Xiaohua sighed. "How would I know that I can't split my primordial spirit after going through the 3 gold lightning tribulation?" Jade Archive Xiaohua shrugged. "I thought that I could split it at will in the future, so I didn't think too much about it. However, now that I think about it, I'm afraid that there will be problems no matter how many primordial spirits there are. Not to mention that the Phoenix Dharma body hasn't returned yet. We recently took in a devil spirit as a little brother. Even that bone-tempering fellow Taoist is somewhat unruly. If we can't get along well in the future, I will be in even greater trouble. Forget it, forget it. You can go. The green-robed Xiaohua waved his hand. I know. That is Shan Jun's cultivation method, Jade Talisman refining technique, and especially the teleportation formation you want. I will work hard on it. I won't delay you. After you take out the gold and wood elemental magnetism, you can set up a large formation there. Fellow Taoist nose eyes heart. Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands. I will go. Oh, don't worry. Before you go out, take a look at Little Yellow. This little guy seems to have some problems. The green-robed Xiaohua seemed to say casually, cupped his hands, and disappeared. Jade Archive Xiaohua was stunned. He waved his hand and saw Little Yellow appear in front of him. Sure enough, as the green-robed Xiaohua said, Little Yellow was somewhat dispirited. Jade Archive Xiaohua muttered to himself, thinking that when Little Yellow went out, it seemed to be like this. When Jade Archive Xiaohua looked carefully, he didn't see anything wrong with Little Yellow. Little Yellow. Jade Archive Xiaohua said. Mother? At this time, Little Yellow woke up from its absent-minded state and answered in surprise. However, it didn't jump into Jade Archive Xiaohua's arms as lively as before. Instead, it swayed its tail slightly, looking very calm. Are you feeling unwell? Jade Archive Xiaohua said with a smile. If there's anything, feel free to tell Mother. It's nothing. Little Yellow turned its neck in boredom. Boy just feels bored. Bored? What do you mean? Jade Archive Xiaohua didn't understand. Are you feeling uncomfortable at home? Or... Mother, Little Yellow said with some embarrassment. Home is very good, there is nothing uncomfortable, but because it is too comfortable, it is not as exciting as outside. Moreover, Mother is so awe-inspiring outside, able to kill so many bad people, upholding justice, seeing injustice on the road, pulling out a sword to help. Boy can't be like Mother. Ah? Jade Archive Xiaohua was dumbfounded. He looked at Little Yellow in disbelief and asked curiously. Where did you know about Mother? Do you know what upholding justice is? Pulling out a sword to help when seeing injustice on the road? Mother. Little Yellow swayed its tail and seemed to be smiling. This is all from Wang Bianfei. What? Wang Bianfei? Jade Archive Xiaohua was even more dumbfounded. When did you see him? Oh, not good. -12. Chapter 3550. Suddenly, Jade Archive Xiaohua seemed to understand something. He sent Wang Bianfei into the space and sealed the space around Wang Bianfei, but he didn't forget what kind of person Wang Bianfei was. He was the most dreamer in the world. In this guy's dream, he seemed to be able to see Little Yellow, and Little Yellow's dream? Thinking for a moment, Jade Archive Xiaohua lovingly asked, What do you think? Boy wants to leave home and go out to sea. Little Yellow said without hesitation, as if he had been thinking about it for a long time, and now he finally had a chance to say it. However, looking at Little Yellow's pitiful appearance, his little claws slightly clasped together, as if he was afraid of angering Jade Archive Xiaohua. Jade Archive Xiaohua didn't get angry, he just remained silent for a long time. He didn't regret sending Wang Bianfei to the space, he just felt a bit of pain in his heart. He was reluctant to part with Wang Bianfei. Jade Archive Xiaohua had always treated Wang Bianfei as his own child, a child that would never grow up. Naturally, Wang Bianfei hadn't changed much after so many years. However, he didn't expect that this child would finally grow up, spread his wings and fly high, and create his own world. The reluctance in Jade Archive Xiaohua's heart was the kind of joy and reluctance of a parent. Mother, don't be angry, Little Yellow whispered. Boy knows that if Boy isn't here, Mother will definitely miss him. Boy guarantees that Boy is just going out to sea, and will be back soon. Ai. Jade Archive Xiaohua sighed and asked. What about Little Black? What does he think? Little Black, he also wants to go out, but he said he will listen to Mother. Mother doesn't want him to go, so he won't go. Little Yellow honestly replied. He also said that to Boy. Haha. Jade Archive Xiaohua laughed. If Little Yellow was a rebellious child, then Little Black was a good boy, so Jade Archive Xiaohua waved his hand, and Little Black appeared in the air. Father, you came! Little Black was obviously more lively than Little Yellow, circling around Jade Archive Xiaohua. I heard that you also want to leave home and go out to take a look. Xiaohua extended his hand, and Little Yellow and Little Black both landed in his hand, as he lovingly asked. Yes, Goldie said that the outside world is very interesting. The boy really wants to see it. But boys should listen to Mother. In fact, it's also very good to stay at home. Little Black was rather straightforward and spoke very quickly. The Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded and said with a smile, In the past, it was all Father's fault. Because I loved all of you, I didn't want all of you to come out. Even when Father was in danger, I didn't want all of you to take risks. But you're going to grow up eventually, so it's normal for you to go out and take a look. All right, I'll listen to Daddy. Little Black seemed to be heartless. Goldie was overjoyed and hurriedly cried out, Thank you, Mother! Thank you, Mother! Where's Little Silver? Jade Archive Xiaohua seemed to think of something and asked. Little Silver is still young, why would it leave home? Little Yellow immediately acted like an elder, as he replied. His tone was similar to what Xiaohua had said to him. Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled slightly, and waved his hand, and Little Silver also appeared in the air. When Little Silver saw Jade Archive Xiaohua, it immediately stood up in the air and cupped its hands in greeting. It then flew to Little Yellow's side and snuggled up to it. Little Silver, Jade Archive Xiaohua asked. Your mother is going to leave home. Are you going with her? Of course. Little Silver's voice was a little low. What are you going to do? Little Yellow scolded. You stay at home obediently. It won't be too late to go out when you grow up. Boys should listen to Mother. Little Silver was very afraid of Little Yellow. Hee. Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. 3 rejuvenation pills appeared out of thin air and he said, The 3 of you take these. Yes, Mother. Yes, Father. The 3 little things opened their mouths, and the 3 rejuvenation pills immediately fell into their mouths. Watching the 3 little ones take the rejuvenation pills, Jade Archive Xiaohua pondered for a moment. He indeed had a lot of treasures, but the 3 little ones couldn't use many of them. Or rather, it could be said that he didn't know what to give them. Take a rest after taking the pills, Jade Archive Xiaohua said. Xiaohua of the Jade Archive said, After a few days, Father will send you out and let you see what's going on outside. Yes, Father. Little Black agreed very obediently, but there was already some reluctance in his voice. Hearing this, Jade Archive Xiaohua couldn't help feeling a little sad. He looked at Little Yellow again and saw only excitement. It was likely that its heart had already been set on its way. Ai. Xiaohua's heart had never ached as much as this time when he came out of the space. Sighing, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and berated. Wan Bianfei, come here! Ah? Master! Wan Bianfei seemed to have never seen Xiaohua so angry before. His body trembled and he anxiously said, What's the matter, disciple? Disciple is right beside you. On the way back from home, what kind of dream did you have? Xiaohua asked somewhat angrily. Ah? Wan Bianfei was surprised. He really admired Xiaohua to the point of prostrating himself before him. He actually knew that he had a lot of dreams. Master. Wan Bianfei didn't dare to hide anything and honestly replied. Disciple dreamed of a little yellow sable. This little sable could speak human language. He bragged to Disciple, saying that his mother was incomparably powerful and could split heaven and earth. Master, if this isn't bragging, then what is? Isn't this little sable's mother the old sable? How is that possible? Thus, Disciple told him about Master, saying that Master could kill a demonic dragon and could kill people from 1,000 miles away. Disciple also said many stories that Disciple heard from Mother. That little Sable was a trash that hadn't seen the world, so Disciple said that he had nothing to say. He also said that his mother was very strict with him and wouldn't let him leave home. Disciple said that you wouldn't sneak away. It's really boring at home, outside is more fun. Shut up, Xiaohua said angrily. This old man is the mother that little Sable spoke of. Ah? How is that possible? Wang Bianfei was dumbfounded. He hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed. Master, please forgive me, Master. Disciple didn't know. Humph. Xiaohua was both angry and amused. He didn't know how to reprimand Wang Bianfei. Presumably, Wang Bianfei had put all those stories that his mother told him on his head. Little Huang was originally the trash that Wang Bianfei said had never seen the world. Now that he was here, he even called Xiaohua mother. How could little Huang win against him? However, looking at Wang Bianfei, Xiaohua thought about Little Yellow. He said that Wang Bianfei's mother spoiled Wang Bianfei too much, but didn't he also spoil Little Yellow and Little Black? The two were obviously extremely powerful demonic beasts, yet he was never willing to let them out. It was also his spoiling that caused the two to have shallow knowledge. Thinking about it this way, Wang Bianfei didn't do anything wrong. If it wasn't for Wang Bianfei's dream, if it wasn't for him drawing a gorgeous world for Little Yellow, how could Little Yellow have the heart to run away from home? Wouldn't he be delaying the two little things? Get up. Xiaohua waved his hand. This can't be blamed on you. This old man put you into the Qiankun bag. This old man still has two little things inside. It's fine if you don't know. But in the future, don't say too many impetuous and unrealistic words. Yes, Disciple understands. Wang Bianfei lowered his head, not daring to say anything more. Alas, I'm afraid these exaggerated words were taught by that little monk Gu Nian. Xiaohua sighed. After a long while, seeing that Xiaohua's face had calmed down, Wang Bianfei whispered, Master, Disciple also saw a little monk in his dream. Oh? Which little monk? Gu Nian? Xiaohua didn't care and just answered casually. But just as he said that, his face was startled and he hurriedly said, You're not talking about Gu Nian? Is it really a little monk? Of course, there was a little monk in the space, and that was Jiang Luer. However, what puzzled Xiaohua was that Jiang Luer didn't look like a monk. How come he became a little monk in Wang Bianfei's dream? At this point, Wang Bianfei's face also showed a puzzled expression, and he replied, Master, that little monk was said to be a little monk, but there was a very big virtual image. I'm afraid it was more than 100 feet in size. Moreover, the little monk was trekking with difficulty, and didn't pay attention to Disciple. No matter what Disciple said to him, he would only recite Buddhist scriptures. Once the Buddhist scriptures were recited, the Buddha's virtual image would shine with Buddhist light. Countless dragons and women, as well as extremely beautiful words, looked very arrogant. Disciple simply couldn't get close. Oh right, there were many Buddha statues and people in that Buddhist light. What was this monk reciting? Hearing the golden body that was more than 100 feet in size, Xiaohua's face lit up with joy, and he asked again. This? How would Disciple remember? Wang Bianfei smiled bitterly. Is it? Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, when walking the deep Prajnaparamita, saw that the 5 skandhas were all emptiness, passing through all suffering? Sarira, form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Xiaohua almost couldn't wait, and in one breath, he recited the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra. Wang Bianfei was dumbfounded. How could he understand Buddhist scriptures? At first, he was simply confused, but when he heard form is emptiness, emptiness is form, his face lit up with joy. However, he didn't dare to say anything, fearing that Xiaohua would be angry. He only waited for Xiaohua to finish speaking, then he opened his mouth and said, Master, it is precisely this. And Xiaohua let out a long sigh. The anger in his heart seemed to lessen. After a while, Xiaohua somewhat strangely asked, This monk has been walking all this time? Yes, master, he has been walking all this time, without stopping, Wang Bianfei said with a smile. Disciple asked him how long he had been walking, and where he wanted to go, but he didn't answer at all. His eyes were looking straight ahead. Ai, this child. Xiaohua sighed. Yes, as Wang Bianfei said, Jiang Luer has already been dead for more than 100 years, and he has been walking all this time. But he has been walking for more than 100 years. His heart is very tired. Master. Wang Bianfei seemed to want to ask something, but he didn't dare to, looking somewhat pitiful. -12. Chapter 35:51. However, at this time, Lu Yi at the side opened his mouth. Master, Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, when walking the deep Prajnaparamita, saw that the 5 skandhas were all emptiness, passing through all suffering. Sarira, form is not different from emptiness, emptiness is not different from form is emptiness, emptiness is form, the same goes for feelings, thoughts, actions, and consciousness. Sarira is the emptiness of all dharmas, either created nor destroyed, either impure nor clean, either increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, there is no form in the air, no feelings, thoughts, actions, and consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no color, no sound, no smell, no touch, no vision, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, no age, no death. No suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment. Because there is no attainment. Bodhisattva, according to Prajnaparamita, there is no worry in the heart. Am I right? Yes, not bad. Xiaohua was somewhat absent-minded and answered casually, but when he finished, he was dumbfounded again and hurriedly said, Lu Yi, you remember it clearly? Yes, master, I remember it clearly. Louis answered in a low voice, very carefully, as if he was afraid of Xiaohua's anger. Wang Bianfei, what about you? Xiaohua turned his head and asked. Wang Bianfei shook his little head like a rattledrum. My head hurts when I hear this, I can't remember it at all. Ha! Xiaohua laughed. Looking at Lu Yi's careful fear, he waved his hand and said, Lu Yi, no need to be afraid. In my eyes there's no distinction between Taoism and Buddhism. This Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra has already been cultivated by others. You don't have to follow in their footsteps. This old man has some Heart Sutras left behind by Buddhism. Take a look and see which one suits you. This old man will guide your Buddhism cultivation. Thank you, Master. The fear on Lu Yi's face disappeared, and confidence appeared in his eyes again. Master, Wang Bianfei at the side said in surprise. You also know how to chant sutras? Disciple really admires you. I want to uphold justice. I want to help when I see injustice on the road. I want to kill people from 1,000 miles away. How can I not know some Buddhism? Xiaohua rolled his eyes at Wang Bianfei and said in a bad mood. Wang Bianfei stuck out his tongue and hurriedly said with a smile. Yes, master is right. After pondering for a moment, Xiaohua took out a booklet and handed it to Lu Yi. This is the text used to record the Buddhist scriptures. Take a look. Although there are some Buddhist scriptures written in the language you understand in the hidden immortal continent, they have lost their original meaning. When you understand these words, this old man will show you the Buddhist scriptures. Yes, master. Lu Yi took it carefully. Xiaohua looked at Wang Bianfei and said, If your senior martial brother doesn't understand, you can give him pointers with all your heart, just like what he taught you that day. Me? Wang Bianfei was stunned and didn't understand what he meant. However, when he received the scroll, he immediately smiled and said, Senior brother, don't worry. I understand all of this. I can teach it to you right now. Thank you, junior martial brother. Lu Yi was overjoyed. Looking at Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei supporting each other, Xiaohua smiled. In fact, the Buddhist text sutras emphasized nothing. What they pursued was to smile while picking up flowers. Xiaohua's Buddha Sarira could also do this. However, Xiaohua felt that letting Lu Yi slowly comprehend the sutras by himself and let the two brothers deepen their relationship would be better than just using his finger. As the saying goes, teaching is easy, but cultivating is difficult. Isn't it exactly like this? Although Qianyu Mountain's name has the word Yu, in fact, it has nothing to do with jade. Even the pitch-black stone wall flickering with a faint phosphorescent light and black gas, even in the daytime, it gave birth to a kind of cold and eerie feeling. Not to mention that it was already night. Although there was a crescent moon in the sky, the moonlight couldn't make Qianyu Mountain give birth to the color of jade no matter what. Qianyu Mountain was also not an ordinary mountain peak, it was only a special place in a mountain range. This mountain range was normal, there were trees and water. However, at Qianyu Mountain, pitch-black poisonous water seeped out from the mountain rocks. This black water was incomparably stinky and corrosive. Not to mention bones, even ordinary stones would be turned into nothingness if thrown in. This black water that seeped out condensed into a pool at the bottom of the mountain. It was about several mu in size. Qianyu Mountain soared into the sky from this pool, separated from the mountain range by this indescribable black water. Qianyu Mountain was not only pitch black on the surface, but the mountain was even more precipitous. From the bottom of the mountain to the top, there was no mountain path at all. It was like the whole mountain was made of iron and stone. In the entire mountain, there was only a cave at the waist of the mountain that led to the outside. In front of that cave, there was a long chain bridge. Only when this several zhang long chain bridge stretched out, could one walk from the chain bridge to the stone cliff opposite Qianyu Mountain. Below the chain bridge was naturally the indescribable black water. In fact, not to mention the fact that Qianyu Mountain had no mountain path, even if there was one, no one would be able to walk from the bottom of the mountain to the top through the stinky black water. This dangerous Qianyu Mountain was the best place to imprison criminals. All of the heinous criminals in Copper Pillar Country were imprisoned in Qianyu Mountain. Because of this, Qianyu Mountain's reputation spread far and wide. Outsiders only remembered Qianyu Mountain and ignored the name of the entire mountain range. At this moment, the night was quiet. This was the case in Copper Pillar Country and even more so in the surrounding mountains. The infamous Front Jade Mountain also became more and more desolate. From time to time, the howls of evil beasts could be heard. Occasionally, there would be screams coming from within the Front Jade Mountain. Other than these sounds, there were also some strange noises. People couldn't help but think of the souls of the dead who died here. They couldn't help but feel their hair stand on end. Who would come here at night? However, just a few li away from Qianyu Mountain was a mountain forest that wasn't very tall. At this moment, the forest was very quiet. When the mountain wind blew, there were actually many black shadows crawling between the rocks. These black shadows couldn't be seen from a distance, and could only be faintly seen when the faint starlight fell from the sky. Roughly counting these black shadows, there were at least a few hundred people. At the edge of the mountain forest, there was a protruding mountain rock. Behind the mountain rock, there were several people. These people's eyes were bright as they looked in this direction. Although no one said anything, the slight uneasiness in their eyes revealed the anxiety in their hearts. The wind blew gently, lifting everyone's clothes. A slightly old voice sounded. "Young Master Zhu today is a little strange. It seems a little different from what young Master said." The voice came from a white-haired old man at the front. "Ah? Senior Dao Hong, is there something different here?" A voice sounded. This voice came from a young master beside the old man. Although it was night time, he was still wearing a brocade robe. He was the undecided scholar that Xiao Hua met at the city gate of the Bronze Pillar Country. This young Master Zhu paused for a moment, and explained as if he was reading a book. "Qianyu Mountain is guarded by General Mo of the Bronze Pillar Country. General Mo's strength is at the 3rd grade of elemental energy. Among the generals of the Bronze Pillar Country, he is considered to be above average. Accompanying General Mo to guard Qianyu Mountain is the Mo army under his command. There are about 6,000 people and they are all outstanding soldiers of the Bronze Pillar Country. General Mo has 6 deputy generals. Of these 6 deputy generals, 4 of them are guarding the surroundings of Qianyu Mountain. The other 2 are leading 2,000 soldiers to guard the mountain range in front of Qianyu Mountain. This is the army camp that we saw in front of us. According to the information I received, there are 4,000 soldiers guarding Qianyu Mountain. They are divided into 3 groups. Young Master Zhu still wanted to say more. The old man waved his hand and said, Young Master Zhu, there is no need to say more. This old man already knows all of this. The information that you said is the usual arrangement. Didn't you see it? Right now, there are so many tents in the army camp. How is it the scale of 2,000 people? If it is 4,000 people, it would be more than that. Young Master Shu was a little hesitant. He looked into the distance and said honestly, Senior, this junior can't see it. And it's fine if you can't see it. The old man named Dao Hong nodded. Tonight is a little inappropriate. In this old man's opinion, why don't we turn back tonight? We can talk about it when we have the chance in the future. And Senior is right. The Bronze Pillar country's capital has suddenly increased its security. This really caught this junior off guard, and I almost couldn't enter the city to pay my respects to Senior. Young Master Zhu was always someone who didn't have his own opinions. Once he heard the old man's words, he immediately agreed. But before young Master Zhu's words landed, an old man beside him said unhappily, Young Master, old Master has been captured by the King of Bronze Pillar country for more than a year. Right now, we don't know if he is alive or dead. Our spies in Qianyu Mountain can't even see old Master. If we wait any longer, I fear, it will be disadvantageous to old Master. Ouch! Right at this moment, a faint scream came from several kilometers away. Young Master Zhu's body trembled, and he echoed, That's right, Senior Dao Hong. We don't have many chances. The longer we delay, the more difficult it is to guarantee my father's safety. Why don't we barge in tonight? That Min-Mo general is only at the first tier of the 3rd grade of elemental energy, 1 grade lower than you. Dao Hong sighed and said with a grimace, This old man only coveted young Master's golden core method. Today, I fear that I will really lose my life here. Didn't young Master say earlier? News of Bronze Pillar country has spread like wildfire recently. Imperial Preceptor Lingqinga died in Black Cloud Ridge. Jiang country's Chongling princess raised her flag next to Bronze Pillar country. How can Bronze Pillar country not increase their security at Qianyu Mountain? It does not matter if this old man dies here, but young Master Zhu does not value your own life? This Senior's words are reasonable. Young Master Zhu was out of ideas again. He said with a frown, This is the most sensitive time for Bronze Pillar country. If we rashly, young Master, you are so smart all your life, but stupid this time. The old man beside him almost jumped up. He looked like he expected better from young Master Zhu. He suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, It is because Bronze Pillar country is at its most critical time that their attention will be on Black Cloud Ridge, the capital, and Jiang country. They will not pay attention to Qianyu Mountain. Only now is the best time for us to enter Qianyu Mountain and rescue Old Master. -12. Chapter 3552. That's right, Senior Xian is right. Young Master Zhu immediately changed his mind. Now that the Bronze Pillar Nation isn't paying attention to the Qianyu Mountain, it's the most advantageous place for us. Senior Dao Hong, I felt that the increase in soldiers you mentioned was a bit strange, but now that I think about it, I'm afraid they sent more soldiers to guard the mountain because General Mo returned to the Bronze Pillar Nation, right? It should be a trick to deceive everyone. Moreover, these soldiers are no more than ants in your eyes. Why do you care? Fellow Immortal Dao Hong. That Senior Xian couldn't help but say, We'll attract the attention of the Bronze Pillar Nation soldiers. Fellow Immortal, you can use your divine ability to enter the Qianyu Mountain. Fellow Immortal, don't worry, the map drawn by the soldiers we bribed at the Qianyu Mountain is definitely correct. As long as you save my master, not only will we immediately give you the primeval stones you promised, we'll also give you the half of the golden core cultivation method. All right. Dao Hong thought for a moment, then clenched his teeth and said, I'll do it now. However, what we discussed before was the arrangement of General Mo at the Qianyu Mountain. I'm afraid he's not here now. There's no need for you to attract the attention of the soldiers around the Qianyu Mountain, because this will only make them more vigilant. Why don't you all follow me into the Qianyu Mountain and see who can find Master Zhu first? Although your Zhu clan has declined, you still have the foundation of an aristocratic family. I don't think you'll care about these soldiers, right? This? Young Master Zhu bit his lip, not knowing how to answer. He looked at Senior Xian for help. Senior Xian glanced at Dao Hong, then at the dozens of men surrounding him, and even the hundreds of people in the distance who couldn't be seen clearly. He nodded and said, "All right, in fact, if it wasn't for the fact that General Mo might discover our whereabouts before we entered the Qianyu Mountain, we would have attacked long ago. Now that General Mo might not be at the Qianyu Mountain, we naturally have nothing to fear. All right, we'll do as fellow Immortal says. We'll do it now," Dao Hong said as he took out a yellow talisman from his small Qianquan pouch. Young Master Zhu nodded and said, "Yes, Senior, please use your divine ability." "We'll be there soon," Young Master Zhu said. Dao Hong channeled his mana and a faint light flashed. Dao Hong placed the yellow talisman on his body. As the light flashed, Dao Hong's figure gradually disappeared. After a moment, Dao Hong's voice came from a few feet away. "I'll be leaving first. You can come over as well, Elder Xian." Young Master Zhu bit his lip. The paleness of his face could be seen clearly in the night. He looked at the elder and said, "Since we have already made an agreement with Senior Dao Hong, then we must keep our promise. Elder, please arrange for people to follow the third method we discussed earlier, young master." Elder Xian revealed a benevolent smile and patted young Master Zhu's shoulder. He said meaningfully, "Young Master took the risk to go to Bronze Pillar Country and met with fellow Immortal Dao Hong at Star Picking Tower's auction. After that, Young Master took the risk to enter the capital of Bronze Pillar Country and asked fellow Immortal Dao Hong to come out and help. These two great achievements were not something that could be accomplished by others. Now that we have to go deep into the Qianyu Mountain to rescue Old Master, as the one who planned this, there's no need for Young Master to personally attend to everything. You can stay here to support us and at the same time provide support. If there are any abnormalities, Young Master can inform us in time." "Elder Xian." Young Master Shu frowned. "Our agreement with Senior Dao Hong was, Young Master, we do have an agreement with fellow Taoist Hong, but who do you think you are? Our Zhu clan's bloodline is thin to begin with. Young Master is the direct descendant of the Old Master. How can he take risks so easily? In particular, this formation requires a person with keen vision. Even though my Zhu clan has over 600 elites, how could they compare to Young Master's vision?" Old Xian continued to smile and calmly said, "If Young Master wasn't here, let alone this old servant, even fellow Dao Hong wouldn't feel at ease, right?" This? Young Master Zhu felt that Old Master Xian's words made sense and fell silent. In addition, didn't Young Master promise to grant fellow Taoist Hong the Golden Core cultivation method? If Young Master also went to the Jade Mountain and fellow Taoist Hong rescued the Old Master, who would he ask for the cultivation method? Old Xian struck while the iron was hot and advised. "Therefore, for Young Master's promise, Young Master can't go personally." "Oh, Elder Xian is right." Young Master Shu nodded. "Then I'll stay here and watch over Elder Xian. If I discover anything unusual, I'll immediately inform Elder Xian." "Good. The safety of this old servant and the others will all depend on Young Master." How could Elder Xian not know that this departure could very well mean that they would be separated by life and death? He looked deeply at Young Master Zhu, then turned his head and said, "Zhu Jiayun, take 2 family guards and help Young Master guard the rear." "Elder Xian." The family guard called Zhu Ji and said anxiously, "I want. What you want is not important. Our rear is the most important. You must help Young Master and let this old man have no worries." Elder Xian shouted angrily. Zhu Jian clenched his teeth and nodded. "Yes, I understand. Let's go." Elder Xian growled and activated his true qi. Faint clouds appeared beneath his feet and carried Elder Cien's somewhat stooped figure as he slowly flew into the distant night. When Elder Cien moved, the family guards around him moved as well. The guards waved their hands and passed down the order. In a short while, hundreds of people flew into the air. Some of them even used lightness techniques and pounced toward the black monster like Qianyu Mountain in the distance. Jiayun, do you think Elder Cien and the others will be fine? Young Master Zhu was clearly worried. Seeing that the distance had already returned to peace, with only the night, the wind, and the occasional beast's roar, he was truly absent-minded as he asked in a low voice. Don't worry, young master! Zhu Jiayun was indeed somewhat unwilling, but he suppressed the hot blood in his heart and said in a low voice, Elder Cien and young master have thoroughly studied Qianyu Mountain. Everyone has also discussed this large-scale invasion many times. There definitely won't be any mistakes. Moreover, young master has even invited a Taoist expert. Old master will definitely be rescued. But I still feel uneasy. Young Master Zhu was on the verge of tears. There are suddenly so many tents in Qianyu Mountain. Why did they strengthen the defense? Then, that damned Taoist cultivator from Black Cloud Ridge, why didn't they wait a few more days to kill the state preceptor of the Bronze Pillar State? When Elder Cien rescues father, he can do whatever he wants. He won't block our way like this. What could Zhu Jiayun say? He smiled apologetically. I heard from Qingyu that young master met a Taoist expert outside the Bronze Pillar State. It would be great if young master could chat with him more. Sigh. Young Master Shu sighed. His eyes were somewhat lost. That person is like a dragon or phoenix among men. When he looks around, it seems like the entire world is in his control. How could I possibly be acquainted with him? Now that I think about it. Just as young Master Shu was reminiscing, a blood-curdling scream suddenly sounded from afar. Although it was several miles away, it traveled extremely far in this cold and silent night. Young Master Zhu didn't care at first. After all, Qianyu Mountain wouldn't be called Qianyu Mountain if it didn't hear screams. However, when he saw thousands of torches light up within several miles, and hundreds of flickering lanterns floating in the air, how could he not know that something had gone wrong? His body couldn't help but tremble. Unfortunately, before he could use the eye-clearing technique to look into the distance, the sound of Immortal slaying crossbows and God slaying bows piercing through the air could be heard. One after another, blood-curdling screams could be heard as the torches flashed. Oh no! Young Master Zhu turned pale with fright. A faint light flashed in his eyes as he looked into the distance. Senior Xian's shock was even greater than young Master Zhu's. He floated in front of the crowd and saw that there were twice as many tents as he had imagined. One after another, they blocked the path to the front of the Jade Mountain. However, at this point, where was there any way out? He could only hold his breath and concentrate on minimizing the commotion. He also believed that the Zhu family elites he brought with him were definitely stronger than the ordinary soldiers of the Copper Pillar State. They would definitely be able to reach the front of Qianyushan without making a sound. Of course, he didn't have much confidence in dealing with the Nightmare Mo army that was defending Qianyu Mountain. Moreover, he didn't plan to have much confidence. His people were originally Dao Hong's cover. As long as they could attract the attention of the Nightmare Mo army and allow Dao Hong to rescue his master, the death of several hundred people was nothing. Unfortunately, Elder Cien was still too optimistic. He had just carefully passed through a few alliances when there was a commotion behind him. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! A loud bugle horn sounded from the left. Then, the lit bonfires appeared one after another. From the tents, groups of soldiers wearing black armor rushed out with weapons in their hands. In just a moment, the entire camp was filled with soldiers in formation. Elder Cien almost rubbed his eyes. These soldiers seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, these soldiers' armor was pitch black and carried a thick blood shadow. An indescribable murderous aura was emitted from the formation. Heavens! Elder Cien almost groaned. Isn't this the black armored army? How did they move from the front lines to Qianyu Mountain? Could it be? Qianyu Mountain! Suddenly, Elder Xian had an ominous feeling. It was as if today was definitely not the best day to rescue his master. Elder Xian's ominous feeling was still too optimistic. After the Black Armor Army formed a formation, they didn't wave their weapons to block their path and fight with them as old Xian had expected. Instead, they threw the spears in their hands and formed groups of several people. The person in the middle raised his hand and flashed with a faint clear light. Similarly, an immortal extermination crossbow appeared above their heads. Without waiting for old Xian and the others to react, arrows carrying a dense immortal extermination aura whistled through the air and flew toward them. -12. Chapter 35:53. The immortal slaying crossbow used by the soldiers of the Bronze Pillar State was a sharp weapon used by Confucian cultivators against the Taoist sect. Even the well-trained Taoist soldiers of the Taoist sect would not be able to withstand it, let alone the family generals of the Confucian aristocratic families. Once they came into contact with the crossbow, from the initial scream, the heart-wrenching howls could be heard incessantly. The family generals of the Zhu family really did not want to scream, but the immortal slaying crossbow was too overbearing. When the arrow flew past, it definitely pierced through their bodies and came out of their backs with flesh and blood. The absolute pain was truly heart-wrenching. They had no choice but to open their mouths. Boom! Elder Xian was stunned, but he felt a gust of wind roaring in front of him. He hurriedly looked up and saw a black shadow with hundreds of inscriptions in it. They seemed to be chasing after his life. As it roared, it had already rushed in front of his face. Elder Xian opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of genuine qi. Several streams of noble qi blasted down at the same time. It was like a giant hand blocking in front of him, barely pulling the arrow away. Whoosh! With a soft sound, the immortal slaying crossbow flew past Elder Xian's ear, and a few strands of his white hair fell to the ground. How can they rush into the Jade Mountain? Elder Xian had already weighed the pros and cons in a moment. He knew that it was impossible to rush through the alliance in this situation, so he hurriedly ordered a retreat. However, the urgency of the situation was far beyond his imagination. Clang! A golden sound came from about 100 feet below him. The sound was so resounding and so frightening. A gust of wind appeared out of nowhere. Elder Xian's noble qi was instantly sucked out of his body. A kind of coldness and an ice demon pounced from under his feet like a ferocious beast. God's slaying bow! Elder Xian's heart immediately turned cold. He had long heard of the weapon used by the Bronze Pillar State to deal with the Taoist generals of the Taoist sect, but he had never thought that one day he would face it alone. Elder Xian's genuine qi was forced to solidify by the God's slaying bow's ferociousness. He felt his bones and tendons go numb, and an irresistible fear rose in his heart. Before he could wave his weapon or take out his scroll and other things, a cold light flashed in the night sky. A 3-meter-long arrow pierced Elder Xian's heart with lightning speed. Elder Xian's body was like a doll. He was sent flying dozens of feet before he landed in an arc in the distance. Boom! The sound came from being nailed to an ancient tree. The ancient tree trembled, and many leaves fell. The old and hunched figure curled up into a ball, and blood flowed out of his mouth like a fountain. He lifted his grayish-white eyes with great difficulty to look in young Master Zhu's direction. Then, he immediately closed his eyes, and his entire body was nailed to the ancient tree. Roar! Roar! In the distance, Elder Xian faced dozens of black armor soldiers who were shouting slogans. Their genuine qi was activated as they worked together to control a crossbow that was dozens of feet long. The crossbow was pitch black, and the thousands of inscriptions on it flashed blood red. It flowed even more violently than the blood on Elder Xian's chest. Boom! 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 A total of 3 similar god-slaying bows roared from the rocks near Qianyu Mountain. 3 arrows as thick as a child's arm shot into the air. A faint light flashed, and strings of blood splattered. Dao Hong covered his left shoulder and revealed himself in the air. There was a look of disbelief in his eyes. He could not believe that his invisibility talisman had been seen through by the Confucian cultivator. Taoist remnant! Behind him, at the edge of the camp, a burly general dressed in battle armor and riding a pitch-black steed appeared. The general roared, "I've been waiting for you here for a long time! My sons! Kill! General! General Hao Hu! How? How is this possible?" Dao Hong seemed to be very familiar with the generals of the Bronze Pillar country. He almost blurted it out. He really did not expect that General Hao Hu, one of the 3 great generals of the Bronze Pillar country, would personally come to Qianyu Mountain to guard it. A sense of dizziness, as if he had fallen into an abyss, instantly arose from the bottom of Dao Hong's heart. However, the difficulty of the situation was beyond Dao Hong's expectations. Clang, clang, clang! At the same time, the sound of the gods slaying bows rang out behind him, where Qianyu Mountain was surrounded by black water. In an instant, goosebumps appeared all over Dao Hong's body. Almost without hesitation, he slapped his hand on the top of his head and a bronze ring flew out. The ring buzzed as it flew out. Rays of bronze luster appeared from the ring, and covered Dao Hong's body in the air. Boom, boom, boom! As soon as the luster fell, 3 arrows rushed to Dao Hong's side. In the loud roar, thousands of inscriptions appeared between the arrows and the ring. The bronze luster turned into fist-sized bubbles, which then burst like ants. Wisps of noble spirit, sharper than knives, pierced into the luster and tore it into pieces. Then, the 3 flying arrows rushed into the ring. Fortunately, after being blocked by Dao Hong's magical weapon, the 3 flying arrows had lost a lot of their strength. Dao Hong was still agile and managed to dodge the gods' slaying bows in a flash. Having narrowly escaped death, Dao Hong no longer dared to fly in the air. His body descended rapidly like a falling meteor. Before his body could land on the ground, boom! Boom! Several beams of light shot out from the halo and struck 4 to 5 soldiers who were activating the Immortal extermination crossbows. How could these soldiers be a match for Dao Hong? In an instant, they were turned into minced meat and scattered all over the ground. Damn it! Seeing that Dao Hong had killed several black-armored soldiers and was about to enter the camp, General Hao Hu was enraged. With a furious roar, he leapt up from his black horse. Stepping on a cloud, he charged towards Dao Hong like a ferocious tiger. While General Hao Hu was still in the air, his fists and legs were already dancing. Wisps of noble spirit fell and the wind from his fists whistled. The soldiers who couldn't dodge in time were blown into the air. The tents beside the soldiers were instantly torn into pieces. Before Dao Hong could hide into the crowd, he hastily formed an incantation gesture. Amidst the vibrating sound of the bronze brilliance, a huge shadow flew out and charged towards General Hao Hu. It collided with the wind generated by General Hao Hu's fist. Boom! A powerful force spread in all directions. The soldiers several dozen feet to the left were sent flying. The Immortal execution crossbows that had just been set up were also scattered by the impact. Woo woo! While Dao Hong was still rolling in the air, 2 more gods-slaying bows came at him. Dao Hong knew that his protective golden light couldn't block the gods-slaying bows. As he lost his balance, he immediately broke the tip of his tongue and spat a mouthful of essence blood on the bronze bracelet. Boom! A loud sound was heard. The bronze bracelet's luster soared into the sky like a waterfall. While protecting Dao Hong, it blocked the 2 flying arrows. Humph! General Hao Hu, who was in the air, let out a cold snort. His feet swept across the air. His palms shook slightly as though he was drawing an inscription in front of his chest. A gust of noble spirit wind rose again. A tiger-shaped shadow actually rushed out from the gust of wind and rushed toward Dao Hong with a roar. Condensed Qi into form? Looking at this tiger-shaped shadow, Dao Hong's heart sank to the bottom. He knew that General Hao Hu had probably reached the pinnacle of the 3rd grade of essence force, or even the 4th grade. He wasn't someone that he could withstand. Woo 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 woo! Just as Dao Hong's heart was trembling, 8 gods-slaying bows sounded at the same time. The black-armored army had unknowingly formed a formation around Dao Hong. The murderous flying arrows flickered with a chilling light that was darker than the dark night. They flew toward Dao Hong from all directions. Seeing this, Dao Hong's expression changed greatly. He suddenly soared into the sky. However, the god's slaying bows were too fast. He had only moved a few feet when the flying arrows had already reached him. Explode! Dao Hong clenched his teeth and suddenly formed a seal. The bronze bracelet's luster was abnormally bright. Boom! A loud sound was heard. Air currents gushed out like a fountain in all directions. The 8 god-slaying bows were actually blocked by Dao Hong. Unfortunately, just as Dao Hong was about to explode his treasures, General Hao Hu's tiger-shaped flying shadow had already arrived above his head. Although there was no stench coming from the mouth of the tiger, there was an aura of extermination. Dao Hong could no longer dodge. Puff! Dao Hong's face turned ferocious. He opened his mouth and a golden core that was smaller than a thumb rushed out. Woo! A violent wind blew and the golden core suddenly expanded. Dao Hong actually wanted to explode his golden core and perish together with General Hao Hu. Humph! Boring! General Hao Hu sneered. The tiger-shaped flying shadow opened its mouth and swallowed the golden core. Boom! A loud sound was heard. The golden core exploded and the tiger-shaped flying shadow exploded into pieces. Even General Hao Hu's body was thrown back half a foot, not to mention the deep pit that was several feet in size on the ground below him. After the rumbling, a blood-curdling scream was heard. 2 god-slaying bows shot out from the darkness like sickles. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but one of the bows pierced into Dao Hong's left cheek and the other into his heart. Dao Hong, who had already used up all of his tricks, was killed by the black armored army before he could put up any resistance. Dao Hong was already a cultivator in the middle stage of the gold core realm. He could be considered a Taoist expert. If he were to fight General Hao Hu alone, he would have no chance of winning. However, it was not impossible for him to escape. However, after he was injured by the god-slaying bows, he lost all his courage. He did not dare to challenge General Hao Hu and could only escape. Unfortunately, the god-slaying bows and the immortal slaying crossbows were targeted at Taoist disciples. Regardless of speed or force, they could break through Taoist spells. Under such circumstances, how could Dao Hong possibly escape? Senior Xian. In the distant night, young Master Zhu heard the continuous screams. Although he could not see much with the art of clear eyes, how could he not know the miserable situation of the others when he heard the sounds of the immortal slaying crossbows and the gods slaying bows? He groaned and tears fell from his eyes. He knew more clearly than ever that Senior Xian's painstaking efforts were as heavy as a mountain. If it was not for Senior Xian's obstruction, he would have been killed by the bows and arrows. -12. Chapter 35-54. Nian, quick, issue the order to retreat! Young Master Zhu cried out without hesitation as tears rolled down his cheeks. Young Master, leave quickly! Zhu Nian was even more decisive. She pulled young Master Zhu's arm and lifted him up, preparing to escape. No! Young Master Zhu roared and struggled. Issue the order quickly! They are the last elites of my Zhu clan! Where's the order to retreat? Zhu Nian roared even louder and told the truth. Young Master, we can only advance tonight. There is no retreat. This. Young Master Zhu was in a daze. After a moment, realization dawned in his eyes. What Senior Xian told him was something that was covered up. At this moment, a wave of spiritual force swept over. Then, a faint voice rang in the ears of Zhu Nian and the others. Oh? I was wondering who it was. So it's young Master Zhu Xiang from the Zhu clan. You guys really don't give up. Since you're here, you've saved me the trouble of... Unfortunately, before General Hao Hu could finish his words, an even more powerful spiritual force rushed over, shattering the wave of spiritual force into pieces. An ethereal voice rang throughout the mountain range. Why is the Jade Mountain so lively? Is it welcoming me? In the distant horizon, a ball of light that was brighter than the crescent moon flew over like a meteor. A Pegasus that looked incomparably holy flashed its wings of light, and pulled a flying chariot into everyone's field of vision. In the light, a tall and thin cultivator in a Taoist robe fluttered in the wind. His hair fluttered in the wind, making him look like a flying immortal. "Generals, listen up!" General Hao Hu saw this and knew that Xiao Hua had come. He didn't care about the Zhu clan's generals who had been killed by the Black Armor Army. He waved his hand and activated his true energy. His voice shook the surroundings. "Yes!" Thousands of Black Armor soldiers responded in unison. They abandoned the Zhu family's generals, reorganized their formation, and activated their genuine qi. Regardless of whether it was the immortal slaying crossbows or the god slaying bows, all of them flashed with clear light. Countless noble qi fell with a loud bang, and billions of inscriptions flowed in the noble qi. "Senior, leave quickly!" Zhu Xiang shouted without hesitation. "This is the God-Slayer bow specially made by the militarists of the Bronze Pillar Nation to counter Taoist spells." As far as Zhu Xiang could remember, there was no Taoist cultivator who could escape from the God-slaying bow. "Ha! It's just a small trick!" Xiao Hua raised his head and laughed loudly. His laughter caused the broken leaves in the forest to fly up. Amidst his laughter, Xiao Hua landed on the flying car. Then, he heard the rumbling sound of rolling thunder. Under Zhu Xiang's dumbstruck gaze, this otherworldly flying immortal stepped on heavenly thunder and arrived. "Fire!" As expected, General Hao Hu was a veteran of the battlefield. His face was as calm as a mountain rock. Seeing Xiao Hua land in midair, he waved his hand and gave the order. Whoosh whoosh, clang clang, woo woo! The sounds of bows and arrows rang out incessantly. Not a single murderous movement resounded in the pitch-black night. Rumble! The lone Taoist Xiao waved his hand. Thousands of heavenly thunders were born from the void. Each of them was more violent than a horned dragon as they charged towards the god-slaying bow and immortal-slaying crossbow. Bang bang bang! Even more intense explosions soared into the sky from the heavenly thunders. Even if it was the immortal-slaying crossbow, the god-slaying bow, and the thousands of black-armored army, in front of Xiao Hua, who was at the 5th stage of origin energy, it was truly child's play. Killing people was even more so in the blink of an eye. Not a single arrow could break through the net of thunder. Not a single trace of killing intent could escape from the lightning. "All of you, move to the side!" Xiao Hua smiled coldly. He slapped his hand on the top of his head. Boom! Under the moonlight, golden light flashed. A nascent soul hand of several acres in size appeared out of thin air, grabbing towards the army camp below. General Hao Hu's face was ashen. He had already heard Northern Gua Institute chief's description. He had already thought that Xiao Hua's strength was extraordinary. However, he still didn't truly estimate Xiao Hua's strength. He still threw Northern Gua Institute chief's warning aside. He really didn't have the strength to stop Xiao Hua. However, since it had already come to this, there was no reason to retreat. General Hao Hu roared. "Kill!" The wind from the fist moved again. A tiger-shaped pillar of vast qi once again charged towards the gigantic palm that was descending from the sky. Boom! The pillar of vast qi rumbled and blasted a hole in the giant palm. The tiger-shaped flying shadow also disappeared, but the hand of the nascent soul was not stopped. In the barracks where thousands of black-armored soldiers were resting, hundreds of immortal execution crossbows and god-slaying bows were destroyed by Xiao Hua as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. When the giant hand grabbed the entire barracks disappeared, as if the black-armored soldiers were stripped naked of their armor. Seeing the gigantic golden hand turn in midair, the golden light disappeared. The entire army camp's military supplies also disappeared. General Hao Hu roared loudly. His body expanded by 2 zhang. The long spear in his hand whistled as it pounced towards Xiao Hua, who was standing in midair with a smile, even more ferocious than the huge python. "You little brat! Why are you arguing with this old man?" Xiao Hua began to show off. Even Ling Qinga wasn't this old man's opponent. Who do you think you are? If I took your life, it would make this old man seem ungentlemanly. If I don't take your life, why are you so noisy? Fine, fine, fine. Let's see if you can take this old man's staff. As he spoke, Xiaohua grabbed in midair and the wishful steel staff appeared. Grow, grow, grow. Xiaohua shouted a few times. The wishful steel staff grew to 2 zhang. Xiaohua only needed to slightly wave it, and the wishful steel staff smashed down like a mountain. Woo! Just the deafening whistling sound made General Hao Hu's body stagnate. Pa! The wishful steel staff accurately hit the python's head. With a loud bang, the long spear fell from General Hao Hu's hand as if it was struck by lightning. The entire long spear was smashed into 2 pieces. Kill. General Hao Hu's arms were numb, but his fighting spirit didn't decrease. With a roar, the tiger-shaped shadow appeared in his fists again. The vast Qi rushed out again. Who knew that Xiaohua didn't dodge at all, nor did he use any magic power to cast any Dao arts. Xiaohua's figure suddenly turned illusory. Like a gust of wind, he floated in front of General Hao Hu in the blink of an eye. With a wave of his right arm, he clenched his right fist and smashed it into the mouth of the tiger-shaped shadow. Boom! With a clear sound, the tiger-shaped shadow shattered. The vast Qi also scattered in all directions. Xiaohua's fist impressively appeared in front of General Hao Hu's chest. General Hao Hu looked at Xiaohua in disbelief. He absolutely didn't dare to believe that a Dao sect cultivator's punches and kicks were more powerful than him, a martial grand master from the school of the military. Looking at the black armor in front of his chest that had been tempered thousands of times by Xiaohua's fist, General Hao Hu spat out a mouthful of black blood and his entire body fell from midair. Plop! Smoke and dust flew in all directions as General Hao Hu fell to the ground. He struggled a few times but couldn't get up. However, under the shattered black armor, his violently heaving chest showed that Xiaohua didn't have any intention of taking his life. All of you step down. Xiaohua waved his hand, looked around, and said indifferently, You all are not my match. I know that you all have military orders, so I won't take your lives. Your opponents are my Jiang country's Dao soldiers. If anyone dares to take half a step forward, I will definitely kill them. The thousands of black-armored armies killing intent disappeared. They looked at Xiaohua blankly and didn't know what to do. The 100 or so people closest to General Hao Hu unconsciously looked at him. You! All of you, listen to my orders. General Hao Hu stood up from the ground with difficulty. His face was pale as he looked at Xiaohua, who was standing in midair with a golden light flashing around his body. He knew that this was Xiaohua's benevolence, and if he gave the order, it would only increase the casualties. Thus, he raised his hand and said, Discard your weapons and sit on the ground. Yes. The soldiers felt relieved as they placed their weapons on the ground and sat down obediently. Xiaohua nodded slightly, no longer paying attention to General Hao Hu. Auspicious clouds appeared beneath his feet, carrying Xiaohua towards the Jade Mountain. Creak, creak. Xiaohua had only flown a few meters when he heard a rough sound coming from the Jade Mountain in front of him. Then, the entire top of the Jade Mountain, as well as the entrance of the Jade Mountain, suddenly shone brightly. On the stone wall, an unknown stone gave off a brilliance that seemed to be made of Minghua stone, illuminating everything in front of Xiaohua. Following the creaking sound, a chain bridge slowly extended out from the cave. On top of the chain bridge, there were 2 old men who were over 70 years old. The 2 of them were dressed in simple clothes, and their faces were clear and arrogant. Seeing that, Xiaohua did not fly forward. He simply descended from the sky and stood at the edge of the stone cliff, watching indifferently. I didn't expect Taoist Master Xiao to be so magnanimous. No wonder Bei Huizhenming praised him so much. Without waiting for the chain bridge to reach into the cliff, the old man in front cupped his hands and bowed, and said, Since that's the case, this old man can't hide behind the chain bridge and do any dirty tricks. This old man is the Prime Minister of the Copper Pillar country, Yan Zhijin. Prime Minister? Xiaohua frowned, raised his hand to return the greeting, and said indifferently, This old man heard that as long as the state teacher is killed, all grudges will be decided on the battlefield. What's the matter with your copper pillar country? This old man killed a state teacher. Why did a general and a prime minister come out? Could it be that you want to force this old man to make a move against your copper pillar country? Bastard! Yan Jijin did not speak, but the old man behind him scolded. Easily exterminating a country, quietly killing people, the entire hidden immortal continent is in a mess because of your Taoist sects. Since you want to establish a country, then establish a country. Why do you need to take the imperial jade seal of our Confucian cultivators? Quickly hand over the imperial jade seal. Seeing that you still have mercy in your heart, this old man can spare your life. Good. You really scared this old man to death. Xiaohua laughed. Who are you, old man? This old man is Jean Richelieu. The old man said word by word, his face full of arrogance. Oh? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows. He did not know who this old man was, but in the distance, young Master Zhu, who wanted to leave but did not dare to, had already used the clear eyes technique to see clearly. He said in a low voice, Copper Pillar Country. Why did you invite this old man here? Taoist Xiao. I'm afraid you're in trouble. -12. Chapter 35:55. Yan Jijin opened his mouth again. Taoist Xiao, if you had only killed Ling Qingge, I would not have caused you any more trouble. Everything could have been settled on the battlefield. However, not only did you barge into my territory, you also took the 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal. Naturally, we cannot just settle this with you on the battlefield. Jean Richelieu, Old Master Jean Richelieu, is a renowned great Grand Master among us Confucian cultivators. His simple and honest reputation is revered by all. He has heard of your atrocities and has specially come to Qianyu Mountain to help this old man retrieve the Imperial Jade Seal. If you take out the Imperial Jade Seal, Qianyu Mountain will retreat and everything will be fine. We will decide who is superior and inferior on the battlefield. Imperial Jade Seal? Xiaohua was stunned and looked at Yan Jijin in confusion. He had already given the 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal to Dou Shanjun. However, who was Dou Shanjun? Although he hid his Taoist identity in the Copper Pillar Academy, how would Xiaohua know who he was going to give the Imperial Jade Seal to? From Yan Jijin's words, even if Dou Shanjun gave the Imperial Jade Seal to the Copper Pillar Academy, the Copper Pillar Academy might not announce it. With the 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal as bait, many Confucian cultivators would come to help the Copper Pillar Academy. How could the Copper Pillar Academy reject such a good deal? Haha, as the saying goes, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Xiaohua laughed. I have already given the Imperial Jade Seal to the governor of the Imperial Academy to bring back to the Copper Pillar Academy. If you want it, you can go find him. Of course, I can imagine, even if the governor gave the Imperial Jade Seal to the Copper Pillar Academy, Prime Minister Yan might not admit it. Oh? The governor of the Copper Pillar Academy, Dou Shanjun? Yan Jijin frowned slightly and glanced at Jean Richelieu beside him. He shook his head and said, I only know of this person and am not familiar with him. Furthermore, I have never heard of the Imperial Academy returning the Imperial Jade Seal to the palace. Haha, rascal, what's the point of saying such baseless things now? Jean Richelieu laughed and pointed at Xiaohua. Even if you really return the Imperial Jade Seal, what are you doing now? This is the prison of the Bronze Pillar country. You keep saying that you want to use your Tao soldiers against the soldiers of the Bronze Pillar country. Why are you using your martial arts to break the law? My hidden immortal continent is governed by Confucian cultivators, unlike your Tao sect's lax rule. This old man is not talented, but I am willing to face the tyranny of your Tao sect as an ordinary Confucian cultivator, and return the public courtesy of our Confucian cultivators. Although chivalrous men use martial arts to violate the laws of Confucianism, aren't they also using literature to violate the laws? Xiaohua sneered. You keep talking about laws and etiquette, yet you're only a tiny Confucian cultivator. What qualifications do you have to represent the hidden immortal continent? You are only qualified to represent yourself. You're just trying to find a reason for your actions. Since that's the case, let's fight." After he finished speaking, Xiaohua's body flashed with golden light. There was some anger in his eyes. He swept his gaze over Yan Jijin and Zhang Rushui and said, facing the 5 brocade cloud paintings, "This old man is not afraid, let alone you 2 old men. Humph, you really think too highly of yourself. How can we join hands to fight against the enemy?" Yan Jijin snorted coldly and took a few steps back. He raised his voice and said, "We'll be relying on old Master Zhang for this battle. Teaching the younger generation a lesson, this old man won't fall behind." Zhang Rushui laughed loudly and also took a few steps forward. His gaze was like lightning as he looked at Xiaohua. His previous old appearance was swept away. "Old master." Xiaohua looked at Zhang Rushui's somewhat trembling appearance and sneered. "If we're talking, this Xiao may not be your opponent. But if we fight, this Xiao advises you to retreat. You haven't even cultivated true qi. How can you be this Zhao's opponent?" Who would have thought that Zhang Rushui's eyes slanted at Xiaohua and said indifferently, "Who said that one must cultivate true qi to kill the enemy? Have you never heard that if one has talent, a poem can kill the enemy, a painting can also kill the monarch? A scholar can pacify the world with an essay? Never heard of it." Xiaohua smiled faintly. But suddenly, Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. He suddenly remembered what Fujiwen said at the auction at Jiaxinglu. He couldn't help but size up the seemingly arrogant Zhang Rushui. "Good, today this old man will let you see what it means to be a great scholar, to criticize in speech and in writing, to set the world in writing, to be a scholar in his 70s, to have a sharp tongue and to correct the laws of the court." Zhang Rushui roared and opened his mouth. He shouted, "The awe-inspiring qi, the spirit of man, the style of writing for 10,000 years, listen to my command, fight! Fight! Fight!" Following Zhang Rushui's 3 roars, the entire Jade Mountain immediately surged with wind and clouds. Not only did the awe-inspiring qi within several miles surge over like a tidal wave, even the silent awe-inspiring qi in the void seemed to listen to Zhang Rushui's command, tearing through the void and rushing in. It was to the extent that when the righteous qi was mobilized, a chilling intent was born from the heavens and the earth. Sounds like war drums and bugles were heard from the left and right. In an instant, Xiaohua had the illusion that he was being attacked by an army of thousands of men and horses. Xiaohua was a little startled. He had fought against more than 1 or 2 Confucian cultivators, but he had never encountered such a strange phenomenon. However, the development of the situation was beyond Xiaohua's expectations. The awe-inspiring qi was far from simple. Following the sound of the bugles, there was the sound of the drums. On the entire Jade Mountain, countless awe-inspiring qi seemed to have a spirit and rushed toward Xiaohua like thousands of soldiers and horses. The awe-inspiring qi's sharpness actually cut through the void, producing a shrill sound. This was different from Lingqingge's golden spear. There was no specific image, only an ancient killing intent. This killing intent was so bleak that, not to mention the falling leaves within several miles, even Xiaohua felt a burst of coldness. Boom, boom, boom! Not only that, but above Xiaohua's head, there were hundreds of awe-inspiring qi pillars that pierced through the sky and directly fell toward Xiaohua. The solemn killing intent enveloped Xiaohua within 100 feet. "It's hard to imagine," Xiaohua sighed. "This world is really too mysterious. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, how could I have imagined that the seemingly defenseless old Confucian cultivator would actually have the power to command thousands of soldiers and horses? Kill!" Xiaohua slapped the top of his head with the back of his hand. The Yuanying's hand was displayed, and it turned into a palm the size of an acre and grabbed toward the sky. Boom, boom, boom! With a series of explosions, the huge palm grabbed the awe-inspiring qi pillars and shattered them. However, the huge palm was also defeated. The entire Jade Mountain was set off by a hurricane. Sand and stones flew everywhere. Not only were the huge trees uprooted, even the black armored army who were sitting quietly were unable to maintain their sitting posture. One by one, they were blown into the air. Some crashed into trees, some crashed into rocks, and many more died. Retreat, retreat! General Hao struggled to stabilize his body. Seeing the loss of his soldiers, he felt heartache. He shouted loudly and commanded the soldiers to retreat. After breaking the awe-inspiring Qi pillars, Xiaohua didn't dare to be careless. After all, the awe-inspiring Qi that surged towards him seemed to be able to suffocate people. He hurriedly slapped his hand again, and the seal of overturning the sea roared and flew out of the space. Under the urging of his magic power, it directly charged into the thousands of soldiers and horses. Woo! At the beginning, the seal of overturning the sea was still like a whirlwind, rushing through a huge gap. However, after only advancing a few zhang, it seemed to have encountered a huge obstacle. Even though the seal of overturning the sea flashed with intense brilliance, it still couldn't advance even half a foot. Oh? This is somewhat interesting. Xiaohua was slightly surprised. He looked at the arrogant-looking old master Zhang Rushui in the distance. Both of his hands moved, and rays of brilliance entered the void. However, in a moment, thousands of golden rays of light appeared near Zhang Rushui. These rays of light flashed around Zhang Rushui's body, like countless small snakes approaching Zhang Rushui. However, after a moment, those rays of light didn't fall even half an inch. It was as if Zhang Rushui's body was surrounded by the defense of the five elements, blocking Xiaohua's magic technique outside. Eh? Xiaohua was greatly shocked. His face revealed an inconceivable expression. Immediately after, he rubbed his hands again. Those thousands of golden rays of light flourished and advanced a few more inches. Unfortunately, these golden rays of light only surrounded Zhang Rushui and were unable to bind him. You want to go against the will of my hidden immortal continent's eternal scholar? Your cultivation is still a bit shallow. Zhang Rushui laughed loudly. Your Taoist technique is inferior to the silk thread in the hands of this old man's embroiderer. Break! However, after hearing Zhang Rushui's soft rebuke, another wave of dense killing intent burst out from his body. Xiaohua's fingers trembled from the shock. The thousands of golden rays of light turned into nothingness. That noble qi even condensed into a sword array and pierced towards Xiaohua. Old ignorant man! Xiaohua was slightly angry. However, in his heart, he truly somewhat admired old Master Zhang's method. Previously, on the way to Jade Mountain, he had already talked with Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei about the effects of Confucian cultivation scrolls. He himself also read scrolls incessantly. After Xiaohua cursed, he waved his hand and the seal of turning the sea returned to his space. Soon after, he coldly glanced at the somewhat arrogant Zhang Rushui and waved his hand again. A golden ray of light soared into the sky. A pair of scissors like a flood dragon streaked across the sky. That dragon's tail swayed, and the noble qi that was like a magnificent army with thousands of men and horses was cut in half. The sword array was also disrupted. That golden ray of light didn't stop. Like a waterfall, it chopped towards Zhang Rushui's waist. Yan Jijin, who was watching from afar, was extremely shocked. He finally understood why Ling Qingge and the others were defeated by Xiaohua. Who was Zhang Rushui? He was a famous Confucian scholar in the hidden immortal continent. He was truly an expert with a sharp tongue. One word could kill 1,000 soldiers. One word could kill 10,000 horses. He was currently the strongest person Tong Zhuge could ask for. Although this old master didn't practice Confucian cultivation techniques, this old master was brimming with talent. His strength was comparable to the top of the 5th level. In front of this kind of expert, Xiaohua actually didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. After several fights, he still had a backup plan. How could Tong Zhuge be his opponent? Seeing that the golden ray of light was like a waterfall, cutting off the noble qi and rushing towards Zhang Rushui's waist, Yan Jijin was greatly shocked. He couldn't help but shout, "Old master, be careful!" At the same time, auspicious clouds also appeared under Yan Jijin's feet. His eyes flashed with absolute determination. -12. Chapter 3556. Humph, child's play. Jean Richelieu snorted coldly, but the awe-inspiring aura several feet around him immediately turned into a whirlwind, carrying Jean Richelieu's body skyward. He really had the power to soar 90,000 miles. The soaring dragon scissors instantly cut through the air, and at the same time, the whirlwind whistled. Unexpectedly, like Xiaohua's nascent soul hand, it turned into a huge fist and smashed towards Xiaohua. Hum! The space several dozen feet around Xiaohua froze, as if thousands of years of students were waving their fists together to attack Xiaohua. Xiaohua furrowed his brows. The soaring dragon scissors, which were originally taking advantage of the situation, drew a few feet of golden light before stopping. Facing the 70-year-old Jean Richelieu, a weapon like the soaring dragon scissors was really too savage. Xiaohua really couldn't bear it. Just now, he had only used 60% of his magic power and didn't dare to use the full power of the soaring dragon scissors. Xiaohua raised his head to look at the fist in the sky and the awe-inspiring aura all around him. He patted his chest, and the 5 silk handkerchiefs of the 5 Qi righteous thunder rushed into the air. Once the silk handkerchiefs appeared, 5 colored clouds rose. Xiaohua opened his mouth, and 5 rays of sword energy fell on it. An immortal slaying platform slowly emerged from the clouds. Thunder is the command of the heavens. Once my thunder comes out, all will obey. Xiaohua's voice was like spring thunder. He waved his hand, and the 5 Qi righteous thunder roared like 5 huge dragons winding down. Regardless of whether you're an ancient student or an ancient killing intent, under my sound of thunder, all will enter the cycle of reincarnation. Rumble. Under the 5 Qi righteous thunder, the awe-inspiring aura and ferocious killing intent were actually faster than boiling water falling on snow. They instantly turned into nothingness, or merged into the heavenly thunder, or hid in the void, and disappeared without a trace. Swish! The soaring dragon scissors from before flashed in the air and swept past Jean Richelieu. The belt around Jean Richelieu's waist immediately broke. Brat! Jean Richelieu turned pale with fright. How is this Taoist thunder controlling technique possible? Unfortunately, before he could say anything, Xiaohua's nascent soul hand once again covered him. Pooh! The big hand had already grabbed Jean Richelieu. Put me down! Yan Jijin, who was already flying, had just seen Jean Richelieu's escape. His heart relaxed. His figure originally stopped in the air, but when he saw Xiaohua's attack, he was shocked and angry. He shouted, also wanted to use of the awe-inspiring aura. But the surrounding awe-inspiring aura's 5 Qi, how could it still listen to his command SSSS? SSSS, S Dragon S Qi, SS Qi's SSSS soul hand. This blue water was very fierce, and the sound of water splashing could be heard. The remaining stone walls were instantly corroded by the blue water. However, the nascent soul's hand was still shining brightly and wasn't corroded at all. Forget it. Yan Jijin sighed and waved her hand. She took out an inch-long white bone. This white bone was like a dagger, and there was a thumb-sized blood-red rune on it. This rune was very small and strange, so others couldn't see it clearly. Yan Jijin stabbed the white bone into her heart. Wang! There was a faint buzzing sound. The blood seeped into the white bone, and the entire white bone gave off a blood-red glow. The rune that went deep into the blood trembled. In the blink of an eye, the rune absorbed all the blood and the entire white bone entered Yan Jijin's body. Yan Jijin's face was bright red. He looked at Xiaohua's big hand and urged the clouds under his feet. His eyes were like blood as he cried, Xiaohua, quickly let go of old Master Jean. Otherwise, this old man will not let you go even if I become a ghost. Humph! Xiaohua sneered and waved his big hand in the air. If you want to be a ghost, then don't be a ghost. This old man also never wanted to take the life of a great scholar like old Master Jean. He was only bewitched by you. Woo! Yan Jijin's body suddenly expanded. She rushed towards the nascent soul's hand and let out a mournful cry. Pung! With a loud sound, Yan Jijin's body exploded. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, and a lot of blood fell on the nascent soul's hand. A bit boring. Xiaohua frowned. He waved his hand and blocked the blood and flesh. He flew into the air and coldly said, "This old man said I won't take old Master Zhang's life. Why are you in such a hurry?" Before he finished speaking, the nascent soul's hand turned into a ray of light and flew into the distance. Only when he was dozens of kilometers away did he release his hand. Jean Rushui was thrown to the ground in a sorry state by the nascent soul. Seeing the golden big hand suddenly withdraw like a god, Jean Rushui's face was disappointed and frustrated. He really didn't understand how Xiaohua's Dao Sex Thunder technique could defeat his noble spirit. However, he didn't have time to think about this. He stretched out his hand and tightened the belt around his waist to see if he could reattach the broken part. Xiaohua withdrew his nascent soul's hand, and the soaring dragon shears hovered in the air for a moment before falling into his hand. At this moment, the night was even darker, but the surroundings of Qianyu Mountain were even more chaotic. Mountain rocks were scattered, trees were toppled, and many black armor soldiers were smashed into the stone walls by the Aoranchi pillar and turned into meat paste. After the Aoranchi dissipated, an unconcealable smell of blood gradually diffused. Sigh. Xiaohua sighed. He scooped up the 5-chi thunder silk handkerchief into his dantian. It was still set up by the Confucian cultivator Xiaohua into the Immortal slaying stage. Then, he looked at the silent Qianyu Mountain and said loudly, "Generals of Qianyu Mountain, this old man is here to save Jiang Country's state teacher Li Xiang. You can send him, and the disciples out. This old man doesn't want to kill again." However, after half a cup of tea's time, the silence was still the silence. The night was still the night. There was no change. "Humph. You really won't turn back until you hit the south wall," Xiaohua sneered. He scanned the area with his spiritual sense and said indifferently, "Since that's the case, don't blame this old man for being unreasonable." As he spoke, Xiaohua's body turned into a rainbow. He didn't walk on the chain bridge and rushed towards the entrance of Qianyu Mountain. Buzz buzz! Just as Xiaohua's figure crossed the cliff and had yet to fly over the mountain stream, suddenly, the bloody light around Xiaohua's body flourished, covering the golden light in an instant. The mana around Xiaohua's body stagnated, and his body fell into the black water of the mountain stream like a falling stone. "Old man!" Xiaohua was shocked. Looking at the bloody light floating around his body, he immediately understood the reason why Yan Zhijin self-destructed in front of him. This was something he had planned long ago. Just as Xiaohua hurriedly urged his nascent soul to transfer his true essence, he heard a strange sound in his ears. It was like a flood that overflowed the sky. At the same time, a burst of light and shadow appeared in front of his eyes. It was like the mountains were shaking. The scenery around Xiaohua had completely changed. Qianyu Mountain was gone, the cliff was gone, and only a black sky and black earth remained. There was no starlight in the darkness, no moonlight, only an unpleasant stench. An illusion array? A moment later, Xiaohua's mana returned to normal. He frowned and stopped. He was about to open his Dharma eye to take a look. Chirk! A bird-like sound entered Xiaohua's ears. A strange rune flashed in the darkness in front of Xiaohua. This rune was somewhat similar to the runes of the Dao sect that Xiaohua cultivated, but it was completely different. As soon as this rune appeared, a kind of blazing heat was born from the rune. Even the rune itself appeared a kind of crimson color. Roar! Just as the bird-like rune appeared, another angry roar came from behind Xiaohua. This time, the rune was different from before. It actually emitted a light green color, and this color carried a kind of desolate coldness. What is this? Xiaohua's curiosity was greatly aroused. He simply withdrew his Dharma eye and golden light flashed around his body. He was more curious. At this time, what kind of defensive array could the copper pillar state have that was more powerful than the 5 brocade cloud painting? Chirk! The crimson rune chirked again and suddenly expanded. A ball of flame spurted out from the rune, and a savage bird that looked similar to the vermilion bird rushed out. As soon as this savage bird appeared, Its crimson eyes turned and immediately saw the faint bloody light around Xiaohua's body. It raised its head, and an indescribable ferocious aura mixed with an aura of desolation rushed towards Xiaohua. Yao? Yao? Xiaohua was shocked. Knowing that he had fallen into Yan Jijing's trap, he didn't dare to be negligent. His hands formed seals, and thousands of golden threads suddenly appeared and danced around the barbaric bird. Who? The barbaric bird opened its mouth and spat out a scarlet flame. Its body was several zhang in color, and quickly burned. Xiaohua's binding technique was actually unable to land. Roar! The rune in front moved, and the rune in the back naturally didn't want to fall behind. A cyan light appeared, and the shadow of a savage beast that looked like an anteater appeared. It was also ferocious, and it was also difficult to conceal its desolate aura. Yao formation! This is the Thousand Yao Sacred Realms Yao formation! Damn it, why would the Copper Pillar State's prison have a Yao formation? Suddenly, Xiaohua realized that this Yao formation was probably what Qian Yushan was relying on. Sure enough, when the two kinds of auras clashed together, an unexpected change occurred. The entire pitch-black space instantly exploded, and the void split apart bit by bit. The pitch-black light scattered throughout the entire space. What was special was that the two strange runes circled around, and the two images of barbaric beasts carried an ancient aura as they charged towards Xiaohua. This aura seemed to be real, and one could believe that if it was on a real cliff, it would be a scene of mountain rocks bursting and trees splashing. The aura that could crush everything in the entire space attacked everything. Xiaohua's protective golden light flickered extremely under this aura, as if it could be broken at any time. Oh! Xiaohua was shocked, and then he activated the Heavenly Law embodiment technique. Woo-woo! The wind howled, and in the midst of the ferocious aura, a Tenjiang golden body suddenly appeared. What made Xiaohua puzzled was that this Yao formation actually didn't block the heaven and earth yuan qi. He activated the Heavenly Law embodiment technique, and a huge amount of heaven and earth yuan qi swarmed in. Woo! Xiaohua's two big hands separately waved, one from the front and one from the back, grabbing the two vicious beasts. Xiaohua's big hands carried the heaven and earth sleeve, and the two vicious beasts' phantoms were immediately covered. -12. Chapter 35:57. Roar. Between the roars of the two vicious beasts, flames and water splashed everywhere, as if they could not escape from Xiaohua's control. Looking again, the torn void streaked across Xiaohua's golden body, and a wound like a baby's mouth flashed and disappeared, unable to cause real damage. Even when the stinky water fell, the golden light only flashed slightly, and in a moment, it was bounced away. This demon array is only SOSO, Xiaohua sneered. But at this moment, roar! GG! The two vicious beast phantoms roared again. Wave after wave of ferocious aura surged out from the phantoms like a rising tide, endlessly pouncing towards Xiaohua. Oh? What's going on? Xiaohua was suspicious and opened his eyes, only to see two runes in front of him. One was like a thread of fire, the other was like a gurgling stream. Above the two runes, the power of starlight fell from the sky and fell on them. The runes were using the power of starlight to produce an attack. The power of the moon and stars? Xiaohua's heart moved, and he waved his hand, wanting to use the wishful staff, but his mind changed, and little yellow and little black flew out of the space. The two little ones looked around curiously, and when they saw the two vicious beast phantoms formed by the runes, woof woof! GG! The two simultaneously roared excitedly and rushed towards the two phantoms. Alas, this Xiao was wrong! Looking at the two little ones and the vicious beast phantoms, Xiaohua sighed. Little yellow and little black are monsters, and this battle is their nature. This Xiao only put them into the space, and although it is comfortable, even with the wonderful fate of yin and yang, it can't make them happy. Rather than this, it's better to let them go. Thinking of this, the knot in Xiaohua's heart was untied. Qian Yushan's demon array was really powerful. Although the two little ones had some means, in the face of the two vicious beast phantoms, they were still not a match. Several times they were beaten into the air, and blood gradually appeared on their bodies. Xiao Hua looked and couldn't help but feel distressed. Several times he wanted to help, but several times he held back. After a meal's time, although the two little ones fought more and more bravely, the phantoms did not know fatigue under the power of the stars, and soon the two little ones were at a disadvantage. This is a little unfair. Xiao Hua looked at the pillar of stellar force and thought to himself. Last time, when he had awakened Wang Biafei's spirit, he had used the devil blade to cut off the pillar of stellar force. Here, he didn't want to reveal the devil blade. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua clapped his hand and the ice mirror fell into the air. Following the activation of Xiao Hua's transcendence energy, the ice mirror expanded to several dozen feet in size and flew above his head. Buzz! An extremely heavy force landed on the ice mirror, causing it to emit a rumbling sound. Although the pillar of stellar force wasn't completely isolated, at least 70% of the pillar of stellar force was blocked by the ice mirror. Woof woof, GG. When they saw Xiao Hua make a move, the two little ones were excited. They wagged their tails and pounced over once again. After all, they were just illusions and the runes of the demonic array. Without the support of the pillar of stellar force, in less than half an incense stick's worth of time, the two little ones paused in midair at the same time. One let out a humph, and the other let out a ha. Silver light emitted from their mouths and noses, and they absorbed the soul essences of the two runes into their bodies. As the illusions of the two vicious beasts disappeared, the entire demonic array collapsed in an instant. Walala! The sound of water was incessant. It was the black water surrounding the jade mountain that fell from midair. The night sky was revealed, the light of the cliff also appeared. Right at the entrance of the cave in front of the jade mountain, a group of people wearing black armor, under the lead of a general who looked as if he had just lost his parents, stood there stupidly, looking at Xiao Hua in disbelief. Xiao Hua's cold eyes swept over them, and he simply ignored them. His gaze fell on the two bones floating in midair beside him. One of the bones was scarlet red, and the other was green. It was similar to the color of the two vicious beasts from before. However, these bones were rather large. One was as thick as Xiao Hua's leg, and the other was as big as a person. Moreover, the runes on these two bones were so dim that they were almost indiscernible. They were exactly the same as the runes that Xiao Hua had seen before. These are strange bones? Could it be that the demonic array was made from these bones? Xiao Hua knew that this was not the time to think too much. He waved his hand and collected the two bones. Then, he looked at the exhausted Goldie and Blacka flying beside him. How is it? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. It's nothing, father, Blacka replied. The boy feels quite full. It's just that the taste is a bit bitter. That little bird is a bit too weak. Goldie's reply was different from Blacka's. If it wasn't for the pillar giving it strength, the boy would have already defeated it. And this is just the beginning. If you too... Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua suddenly realized something. He couldn't help but be ecstatic. This was because Goldie and Blacka were not talking to him through their minds like before. Instead, they were speaking from their beasts' mouths. Although it was their first time speaking, it was actually very smooth. Presumably, the two little things had practiced a lot in the space. Ha! Xiao Hua laughed. Without saying anything, he waved his big sleeve and collected the two little things into the space. He looked at the group of people at the entrance of the cave and shouted, This old man is in a good mood today. I originally wanted to overturn this jade mountain of yours, but I'll forget about it now. Quickly release Li Xiang and the others. Xiao. Daoist Xiao. The general at the front had just woken up. He hurriedly jumped down from his horse and bowed. This one is on horseback. Please invite Daoist Li and the others to come up. Humph, at least you know how to behave. Xiao Hua coldly snorted. All kinds of intimidating actions in his mind were thrown to the side. Sure enough, not long after, a young man covered in blood appeared in front of Xiao Hua. His hands and feet were shackled, and there were thick chains on his shoulders. The young man's hair was stuck on his face. There were many blood stains on his face, and there were also some blood stains on his face. However, these could not stop the young man's arrogance. Following the young man came out, there were dozens of people. Among them, 9 of them were strung on the same chain as the young man. The others were divided into 3 groups and strung on other chains. After the young man came out, he narrowed his eyes and looked at Xiao Hua, who was standing in the air. He stuck out his tongue and licked his dry lips. He did not open his mouth to speak. Damn it! Xiao Hua saw this group of people in such a miserable state. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He knew that Li Xiang and the others must have suffered a lot in the Jade Mountains National Prison. Even their cultivation would be crippled. After all, who would understand the principle of eliminating evil? Why don't you hurry up and remove their torture devices? Xiao Hua roared. Who knew that the general trembled and knelt down on one knee? He cried out. Let Taoists know that Taoist Li and the others were already wearing torture devices when they were escorted here. The items used to remove the torture devices are not in the Jade Mountain. When Yan Zhijin came over, he did not say anything? Xiao Hua frowned and asked. Lord Prime Minister did not give this general anything. The general lowered his head and said. He only said, if Taoist Li killed his way to the Jade Mountain's cave, we did not need to do anything. Everything will be done according to Taoist Li's request. As long as Taoist Li and the others see them, he will definitely spare our lives. Oh? Why would this old man spare your lives? Xiao Hua was very surprised. Fellow Taoist. At this time, Li Xiang opened his mouth and said in a hoarse voice. Because this Li's cultivation was not crippled by the copper pillar state. This Li's disciple should be the same. Therefore, Yan Zhijin felt that fellow Taoist Li would let this Li spare their lives on this account. So that's how it is. Xiao Hua was overjoyed and nodded. Fellow Taoist Li's cultivation is still there, congratulations. If these soldiers' lives are spared, then so be it. I will listen to fellow Taoist orders, Li Xiang said coolly. Pfft. Xiao Hua opened his mouth and a sword light flew out. Clang, clang, clang. Dozens of crisp sounds rang out. The chains on Li Xiang and the other shoulders, as well as the torture tools on their hands and feet, were all shattered. Moreover, the sword light was extremely sharp. When the chains and torture tools broke, it did not affect their injuries at all. Fellow Taoist Li, this one is Xiao Hua of the Taoist sect. Right now, I can be considered the state teacher of Jiang country. The princess of Changling and Qin Xiaoyao asked this Xiao to come to the Jade Mountain to rescue fellow Taoist. Fortunately, I did not fail my mission. Fellow Taoist and the others' injuries can be dealt with after leaving this place, Xiao Hua said as he put away his flying sword. Oh? Hearing Xiao Hua call himself the state teacher of Jiang country, Li Xiang was clearly stunned. However, he raised his hand with some difficulty and said, I thank the state teacher for saving us. I will listen to the state teacher's arrangements. All right. Xiao Hua nodded and shouted to the general of the Jade Mountain. Why aren't you preparing the horses? Yes, yes. The general hurriedly waved his hand. The soldiers behind him hurriedly jumped down from their horses and led the horses in front of Li Xiang and the others. Let's go! Xiao Hua looked at the flat cable bridge again. It was rather narrow and could only allow one person to pass through. He waved his hand and said, All right. Li Xiang stepped on the stirrups and responded. He wanted to get on the horse, but he was too weak and could not get on. The black armored army of the Copper Pillar country did not dare to be negligent, and quickly helped him up the horse. Thank you? Li Xiang glanced at the black armored army and said indifferently. The black armored army shrunk their necks and replied in a low voice. I don't dare! Li Xiang's words of thanks made Xiao Hua's lips curl up slightly. Facing an enemy soldier who had tortured him to such a state, Li Xiang was still able to say these 2 words. One could imagine Li Xiang's magnanimity. Xiao Hua did not save him in vain. The other dozens of people were even weaker than Li Xiang and were unable to get on their own horses. They were all sent onto their horses by the black armored army. Li Xiang shook the reins and was about to move out when an anxious voice shouted from the other side of the cliff. Taoist Master Xiao, Taoist Master Xiao, I have eyes but fail to see. I do not know Taoist Master Zhao's true appearance. Xiao Hua frowned and raised his head to look. He saw that young Master Zhu from before was rolling and crawling. It was unknown if he was flying or running, but in short, he appeared on the cliff in an extremely sorry state. There were a few bloodstains on his forehead, the scholar's scarf on his head had long disappeared, and the brocade robe on his body had several holes in it. -12. Chapter 35-58. Who are you? Which fellow Taoist disciple are you? Why should this old man help you? Xiao Hua asked indifferently. This young man is not a Taoist disciple. Young Master Zhu took a deep breath and said, This young man is a disciple of the Zhu clan in Shuzhou's Wuyuan County. My name is Zhu Xiang. My father's name is a secret. My Zhu clan is the descendant of the great scholar Zhu Xi. Due to a rumor in the outside world that my ancestor Zhu Xi accidentally obtained the heavenly book's true enlightenment, we were forced by a scholarly family. Now that my Zhu clan has declined, it can no longer be considered an aristocratic family. However, the king of the Copper Pillar State is still obsessed with the heavenly book's true enlightenment. My father and my Zhu clan's disciples were captured by them and brought to Qianyu Mountain. Now their fate is unknown. Heavenly book's true enlightenment? Xiao Hua's face showed a thoughtful expression. He asked, What's that? This young man doesn't know. Zhu Xiang replied without hesitation. This young man has never heard my father mention this. I reckon that my Zhu clan has never obtained the heavenly book's true enlightenment. This should have been made up by my ancestors' enemies. So it's like this. Xiao Hua nodded slightly. He understood that this so-called heavenly book's true enlightenment was probably a rumor. If the true enlightenment existed in this world, how could Xinxin, who came from a scholarly family, not know? How could the true enlightenment of the 5 Qis unifications be lost? However, to Xiao Hua, it didn't matter whether there was the heavenly book's true enlightenment or not. Since Zhu Xiang was a descendant of Zhu Xi and a member of the Zhu clan, how could Xiao Hua not help him? Thinking of the Zhu clan's family of 4 in Jinghua City, the talismans on their bodies, and the scroll that old lady Zhu gave to Xiao Hua in his own space, Xiao Hua couldn't just stand by and watch. Quickly go and invite old Master Zhu Qing out, Xiao Hua ordered indifferently. This? The black-armored general slightly hesitated. However, he immediately came to his senses and hurriedly shouted. Quickly, quickly bring old Master Zhu and his family out. Not long after, a Confucian scholar of around 50 years of age and a dozen slightly younger scholars were supported out. These Confucians were even more miserable than Li Xiang. Some had lost arms, some had lost legs, and even more of them did not have a single piece of good flesh on their bodies, their flesh badly mangled. The Confucian scholar in his 50s had his eyes half open, and his face was swollen to a size larger than an ordinary person's. He couldn't even walk. Father! Zhu Xiang couldn't hold it in any longer, and hurriedly ran over from the chain bridge. At this time, a few family guards had already arrived behind him. They hurriedly pulled him back and said anxiously, Young master, don't be anxious. You can't cross this chain bridge. Let me invite old master out first. Oh. All right. Zhu Xiang was very obedient. He stopped and called out to Zhu Qing. Father, the person in the air is Jianghua's national advisor, Taoist Master Xiao. He was the one who saved you. Zhu Qing reluctantly raised his head and looked at Xiao Hua in the air. He cupped his hands with difficulty and said, This old man, thanks Taoist Xiao. You're welcome. Xiao Hua nodded. This old man has some connections with the Zhu family, so saving you is something I should do. Oh? Zhu Qing stared blankly for a moment. His eyes turned slightly, and he opened his mouth again. Taoist Master Zhao's cultivation, Is it at the 5th level of origin energy? Xiaohua frowned. He didn't understand why Xu Qing asked such a question. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, "And probably. Why are you asking this?" Xu Qing clenched his teeth. He extended his hand and pulled out his waist blade from the black armored army beside him. The black armored army was shocked. He hurriedly tried to dodge, but when the black armored army dodged, Xu Qing lost his balance and was about to fall. Xiaohua waved his hand and supported Xu Qing. He smiled and said, "Old Master Xu, why lower yourself to the same level as a soldier?" Pfft. Xu Qing didn't answer. He flipped his hand, and the tip of his waist blade pierced into his calf. Shwa! With another push, his calf was cut open, and blood flowed out. "What are you doing?" Xiaohua was shocked, and the others were also puzzled. "Father!" Zhu Xiang shouted even louder. He wanted to pounce over. Xu Qing took a deep breath and threw his waist blade away. He extended 2 fingers and groped around in the flesh of his calf. He took out something smaller than the size of his finger. He extended his trembling arm and weakly said, "Taoist Master Xiao saved my life. I have nothing to repay you with. This is something passed down from my ancestors. As for what it is exactly, I don't know. Today, I will offer this to Taoist Master." Without waiting for Xu Qing to finish speaking, Xu Qing's head tilted and he fainted. That little thing stained with blood was still tightly held in his hand, and he raised it in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua instantly understood Xu Qing's intention. He slightly shook his head. He couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. If Xu Qing was trying to divert the disaster, Xu Qing had also asked his own cultivation. His strength had reached the 5th level of origin energy. In the Taoist sect, he was a spirit-severing stage cultivator. He definitely had the strength to hold the Zhu clan's inheritance. If Xu Qing was only trying to repay a favor, Xu Qing had no reason to offer this item in front of so many people. It was obvious that he wanted to throw away the inheritance that had implicated the Zhu clan. Moreover, Xiaohua was a Taoist sect cultivator. Xu Qing's Zhu clan's inheritance was used by Confucian cultivators. Xu Qing also didn't see Xiaohua's flying sword. Naturally, he didn't know that Xiaohua was a Confucian cultivator. What use did Xiaohua have for it? Forget it. Xiaohua pondered for a moment, but didn't refuse. He simply went with the flow and waved his hand. The blood-stained item fell into his hand. After carefully examining it, he stored it in his space. Then, he coldly said to the people in front of the Jade Mountain, "You all saw that this old man took this item. If anyone dares to leak the news, they will die. If anyone dares to leak it, I will definitely return to the Jade Mountain. I will kill everyone I see." Taoist Master. The general in front of the Jade Mountain smiled bitterly and said, "If the monarch asks, this general doesn't know how to report it. Moreover, Xu Qing gave it to Taoist Master." Although the general didn't finish his sentence, Xiaohua understood. After thinking a little, he felt that it was true. If these people didn't dare to leak it, who would know that it was in his hands? If they wanted to find it, wouldn't they have to look for the Zhu clan? Wouldn't he have taken advantage of them and still acted innocent? His previous warning was like taking off his pants to fart. It was completely unnecessary. "Humph, you just have to report it as it is," Xiaohua coldly said. "However, you still have to pass a message to your monarch. Don't think too much. Although I don't like to kill people, if there is any entanglement, I will definitely not be merciful. There won't be any benefits like Jean Rouchet today." Yes, this general understands. This general has already reported it to my monarch," the general hurriedly replied. Li Xiang, who hadn't left before, raised his eyebrows when he heard Jean Rouchet's order. His eyes were secretly filled with astonishment. Then, he looked at the black armored army in front of the Jade Mountain, who were more well-behaved than rabbits. He understood a lot in his heart. At this moment, the dozen or so guards of the Zhu clan also leaped over the cable bridge. When they arrived near, they all bowed to Xiaohua and hurriedly left with the unconscious Zhu Qing and the others. Zhu Xiang, who was at the edge of the cliff, knelt down towards Xiao Hua and cowed out a few times before following the crowd. Previously, when Zhu Xiang asked Xiao Hua to save Zhu Qing, he didn't kneel down. However, when he saw Xiao Hua accept Zhu Qing's item, he knew that Xiao Hua was righteous and had sincerely blocked the disaster for the Zhu clan. The gratitude in his heart was incomparable. Finally, he pushed the golden mountain down the jade pillar and threw away the gold under a man's knee. Looking at Zhu Xiang's back, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of Jinghua City's Zhu Fenger and hurriedly transmitted a few words. Zhu Xiang stared blankly, his entire body trembling. He hurriedly turned his head. Although he didn't say anything, anyone could clearly see the wild joy on his face. Without waiting for Zhu Xiang to say anything, Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out a few jade bottles. With a wave of his hand, the jade bottles flew across the mountain stream and landed in front of Zhu Xiang. Xiao Hua then said in a clear voice, "Young Master Zhu, please tell your father on behalf of this old man that if this old man has the time, I will definitely pay a visit to the Zhu clan." Zhu Xiang received the jade bottle and carefully put it away. He said respectfully, "My Zhu clan will never forget Taoist Master Zhao's great kindness. Taoist Master Zhao's life will be passed down in my Zhu clan for generations. Hee, go!" Xiao Hua waved his hand, lowered his head to look at Li Xiang and the others and laughed. "Fellow Li, let's go as well." "All right." Li Xiang patted his mount, and the black horse let out a long neigh. Its four hooves flipped as it rushed towards the direction of the chain bridge. However, after a while, dozens of people had crossed the chain bridge, and Li Xiang's cultivation had yet to recover, so his consciousness could not be used. However, seeing the destruction caused by Xiao Hua and the others, Li Xiang was even more surprised in his heart, and when he saw the black armored army that covered the entire mountain range, his surprise had already reached its peak. He was the second imperial advisor of the Jiang country, and had fought with the Copper Pillar State for many years. How could he not know the power of the Copper Pillar State? Since the Copper Pillar State had placed such an elite here, and even had the great scholar Zhang Rushui, then what about the Copper Pillar State's imperial advisor, Leng Qingge? General Hao Hu? All of a sudden, a general in bright armor appeared at the foot of a mountain not far away. His rock-like face had an indescribable expression as he looked at the top of Li Xiang and the others. Li Xiang was shocked when he saw this person. Immediately, Li Xiang followed General Hao Hu's gaze and saw Xiao Hua's figure slowly rising up in the sky. In front of him was a heavenly horse that was flashing with a holy light, dragging a carriage and flying out. It was precisely descending from the sky to welcome Xiao Hua. "Taoist Master Xiao! Taoist Master Xiao!" Li Xiang's heart was filled with complex emotions. Seeing Xiao Hua's figure land on the flying carriage, he muttered to himself. When Xiao Hua landed on the flying carriage, Lu Yi and Wang Yi flew up, saying that they were welcoming their master. The two of them had limited cultivation, and Xiao Hua was afraid that the battle would affect the two of them, so he made the heavenly horse and flying carriage stop at an extremely high altitude. The two of them could not see the specific situation, and could only hear the extremely loud rumbling sounds, as well as various colored lights. At the same time, they could feel the intense changes in the heaven and earth origin energy, causing their hearts to clench together. Later on, the entire mountain range fell silent, and the heavenly horse did not fly down, causing them to be even more afraid. Only when the heavenly horse was urged to fly slowly did the two of them finally relax. "You can wait here!" Xiao Hua waved his hand and sat down cross-legged. With another wave of his hand, Little Yellow, Little Black and Little Silver appeared in the air. When Wang Yifei saw Little Yellow, his eyes widened. He instantly thought of what Xiao Hua had said earlier, and his expression changed greatly. -12. Chapter 35-59. "Father, Mother!" Two little mouthfuls of human language, jumping happily in front of Xiao Hua. Knowing that he can leave home, Xiao Huang also regains his previous happiness. When Xiao Huang sees Wang Bianfei, he wags his big tail and complains to Xiao Hua. Mother, mother, this boy said his master is more powerful than mother. You go and find his master. Boy doesn't believe that there is someone more powerful than mother in this world. Master. Wang Bianfei miserably stands there, looking pitiful. He secretly glances at Xiao Huang, not knowing what to say. Xiao Huang, this is mother's disciple, Wang Bianfei. Xiao Hua says with a smile. The master he is talking about is mother. Ah? Is that so? Xiao Huang is stunned, then wags his tail and flies around Wang Bianfei a few times. His dark eyes stare at Wang Bianfei a few times, and cries, Boy, since you are mother's disciple, why didn't you say so earlier? That, young master! Wang Bianfei says with a smile. Didn't this little one just know? Master has already scolded this little one before. Today, this little one apologizes to young master. Saying that, Wang Bianfei bows. Forget it, forget it. I won't lower myself to your level. Xiao Huang's tone is very similar to Xiao Hua's. His tail wagging is as clean and nimble as Xiao Hua's hands. Bianfei, no need to call him young master. Xiao Hua snappily says. Just call him Xiao Huang. You are this old man's disciple who is not included in the wall, so you are of the same generation as him. Yes, master. Wang Bianfei smiles, knowing that Xiao Hua is no longer angry with him. Mother, what is the same generation? Xiao Huang is very curious. Xiao Hua doesn't answer. He turns to Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei and says, You wait in the car first, this old man will talk to them for a while. After Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei enter the flying car, Xiao Hua says with a smile. Xiao Huang, this world is incomparably huge, it is not something our family can compare to. Moreover, there are a lot of people and a lot of things in this world that you can't know by staying by mother's side. Previously, mother was reluctant to let you go out because she was afraid that you would encounter some danger. Just now you also saw those two. Savage beast soul, although they are very powerful, there are many things in this world that are more powerful than them. Mother, this boy is not afraid. This was Goldie's answer. Daddy, how powerful is he? This was Little Black's question. Hee, you can only know how powerful he is when you see it with your own eyes. As for whether I'm afraid or not, that's secondary. The most important thing is to stay alive. Xiao Hua lovingly looked at the two little things. He knew that today was the day of separation, and these two demonic beasts couldn't even differentiate between mother and father. How could they become real demonic beasts? A demonic beast that couldn't even distinguish between peers was definitely not a qualified demonic beast. Xiao Hua's exhortation lasted for several hours. Seeing the scorching sun overhead, under the flying car, Li Xiang and the others were a little tired from riding. Only then did Xiao Hua reluctantly listen. It seemed that he still had a lot to say, as if he always wanted to keep the two little things by his side for a while longer. However, the two little things' wings had to grow, and they could only leave his side. He had done everything, so the two little things could only remain ignorant forever. Seeing that Goldie was a little impatient, and Little Black was listening with great interest, Xiao Hua couldn't hide a kind of feeling in his heart. It was as if the two's departure emptied his heart. Suddenly, a kind of distant memory appeared in his mind. That memory was some white hair, some tears, and some faint fragrance of milk. Mother! Xiao Hua's eyes were moist. Where are you? Mother! At this time, an even weaker voice sounded. This boy also wants to go out with you. What are you going to do? You're so young, didn't you hear what mother said? It's very dangerous outside. Wait until you're a little older before you tell mother. Goldie's voice was very impatient. Xiao Hua was helpless as he looked at Little Silver and said, Little Silver, just call this old man master. Yes, master. Little Silver felt very wronged. It looked like he also wanted to be rebellious like Goldie. It's not that I don't want you to go. Xiao Hua suddenly had the awareness of being a mother, and almost self-taught, he coaxed Little Silver. Look, your mother and Little Black are both gone, so doesn't this mean that there's no one by this old man's side? Do you want this old man to be alone at home? That's true. Little Silver mumbled a little. Xiao Hua struck while the iron was hot. Also, little Silver is very capable, and can help this old man by staying with him. Wasn't it little Silver who discovered the primordial stone mine in Black Cloud Ridge? You've really done this old man a big favor. The boy knows. Little Silver was a little proud as he nodded his little head repeatedly. Mother, when is the boy leaving? Goldie urged. Xiaohua looked at the scorching sun and said, Go now, but you have to remember, don't have the heart to harm others, and be on guard against them. You two have to discuss everything. Mother, you've already said this 4 times. Xiao Huang interrupted Xiaohua's words. Little Black said, Yes, father. The boy understands, he definitely won't let father worry. The boy will take a look outside, he'll be right back. I go. Xiaohua waved his hand. No matter how much they talked, they had to part in the end. Even if he didn't let Goldie go today, what about tomorrow? The day after tomorrow? All right. Goldie wagged his tail and soared into the sky. He casually put down something and flew away. Little Black didn't hesitate and hurriedly chased after him. Seeing the two leave, Xiaohua's heart softened and his eyes became slightly warm. Fortunately, before Xiaohua could release his divine senses to catch up with the 2 little ones, 1 black and 1 yellow light flashed, and the 2 little ones flew onto Xiaohua's shoulders. They hugged Xiaohua's head on each side and called out, Mother, father, the boy really is going out to take a look, he'll be right back, don't be sad. Xiaohua quietly rubbed his eyes and smiled. The wind is a little strong, mother got sand with her own eyes. Don't worry, you two go. Be careful, take a look and learn more. Mother will be waiting for you two at home. Although Goldie wanted to go out, he was also reluctant to part with Xiaohua. Xiaohua's sadness just now made his heart clench. Hearing Xiaohua's comforting words, he seemed to have grown up a little. He looked at Xiaohua and said, Mother, don't worry. The boy will definitely become the most awesome in the world, and then come back to help Mother. Mother doesn't want you to become the most awesome, and I don't want you to become the most outstanding. Xiaohua smiled and stroked Goldie's and Little Black's heads. You two have a good experience. Coming back safely is Mother's greatest wish. I know, Mother. Goldie jumped up again. The boy is going out to take a look, maybe he'll come back tomorrow. And it's all right. Xiaohua concealed the parting in his heart, and nodded slightly. It's already late, go quickly. Yes, Daddy. Little Black obediently flew away from Xiaohua's shoulder. Goldie acted coquettishly for a moment before flying away. However, after flying away, Goldie flew back to Little Black's head. The 2 little ones could be considered to have turned their heads while flying. Xiaohua felt very upset. His divine senses followed them for more than 10 li, and then looked into the distance for nearly 1,000 li before he retracted it. Shouldn't I give them more things? Teach them more ways to protect themselves? Xiaohua sighed and touched Little Silver, who had also taken the opportunity to jump onto his shoulder, a little regretful in his heart. Unlike Yuan Tongtian, Xiaohua had only given the 2 little ones the rejuvenation pill. He hadn't even given them the mother-child spirit fruit, let alone any cultivation methods. Xiaohua's intuition told him that what he had might not be the best. Moreover, Goldie and Little Black had already said earlier that some things had gradually emerged in their minds, which were their respective inheritances and cultivation paths suitable for them. If he stretched his hand out for no reason, it would only delay their growth, just like keeping them by his side in the past. Maybe tomorrow? Maybe the day after tomorrow? Xiaohua looked into the distance and thought. They'll come back after suffering a little, right? Xiaohua was now the father and mother of his children on a long journey. He was afraid that his children would suffer a lot, but he also wanted them to come back sooner, and even more so, he wanted them to have some success. But how could Xiaohua control the affairs of this world? The waves that Goldie and Little Black had stirred up were beyond Xiaohua's expectations. Little Silver, hurry up and cultivate when you get home. Xiaohua was like a nagging old man as he exhorted Little Silver. Help this old man after you've succeeded in your cultivation. Otherwise, your mother will blame you when she comes back. Yes, master. Little Silver nodded obediently like a little person. Come out later, Xiaohua said. Yes, master. Louis and Wang Bianfei stayed in the flying car. Listening to Xiaohua talk so much to the two little ones, they each had something on their minds and their eyes were red. Hearing Xiaohua call them, they hurriedly came out to answer. Master, you're really too good to them. Louis, who hadn't spoken rashly all this time, looked at Little Silver on Xiaohua's shoulder and said enviously, It's not like you're a demon pet at all. This is this old man's boy. Xiaohua sighed and stroked Little Silver. Little Silver also obediently licked Xiaohua's finger with his little tongue. This old man has never treated them as demon pets. By the way, master, I heard Taoist Xiao say that demon pets need to be bound with some kind of restriction, otherwise, they might betray their master or be captured by other cultivators. Louis was still a little worried as he asked, Master, you definitely don't have any restrictions on them, right? If you let them go just like that. What kind of restriction would my children need? Xiaohua said with a smile. They're all intelligent and can understand human speech. This old man has never thought of it that way. However, if anyone dares to bully them, this old man absolutely won't let them off even if I go to the 9th heaven or the 9th hell. Thinking of how protective Xiaohua had been in the Black Cloud Ridge primordial stone mine, even when the Black Bear spirit had been bullied, Xiaohua had still wanted the other party's arm. Louis stuck out his tongue and laughed. I hope no one is blind. Otherwise, they'll be in deep trouble. -12. Chapter 3560. Master, is this little guy called Little Silver? Can he play with us? Wang Bianfei asked with shining eyes. If you let him stay in the small Qianquan bag all the time, of course he'll get sick of it. This little one thinks it's great to be by your side. Why do they want to leave? I think it's because Master doesn't want them to come out. You're right. Xiaohua nodded and patted Little Silver. Go play with them. If you want to cultivate, come back to me. Yes, Master. Little Silver was more obedient than Little Yellow. He flew up from Xiaohua's shoulder and landed on Wang Bianfei's head, making Wang Bianfei laugh. Seeing the envy in Lu Yi's eyes, Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. The divine power centipede came out of the space. Xiaohua pointed at Lu Yi and said, You go too. Accompany Lu Yi, and I'll give you benefits in the future. Chirp chirp. The divine power centipede was very happy. Although its expression couldn't be seen, its twisted waist revealed its intentions. It drew a black line in the air and landed on Lu Yi's shoulder. The divine power centipede naturally wasn't as fun as Wang Bianfei. It was even a little scary. However, Lu Yi had seen how powerful it was before, so he naturally knew more than Wang Bianfei. When he plucked up his courage to touch the divine power centipede's cold carapace, the divine power centipede waved its antennae in response. Lu Yi's mood improved greatly. AI, that's right. Although this Zhao's space is good and full of spirit qi, it doesn't have human energy. Who can resist loneliness? Even Lure of Nirvana strives to move forward in the midst of Nirvana. Xiaohua looked at the four little things' happy and harmonious appearances, and secretly made a plan in his heart. Whether it was the yang side of the space or the yin side of the space, they both needed energy. It looked like he would have to spend more effort in the future. I wonder how Little Yellow and Little Black are doing? As Xiaohua pondered, he suddenly thought of the two little ones. In the end, Xiaohua dismissed the idea of releasing his divine will or Buddhist awareness to check on the two little ones. Since he was going to let go, he might as well leave them behind. There were many things in the world that were difficult to reconcile, and he didn't lack parting with them. Below Xiaohua, Li Xiang and the others were still riding on their horses. They did not dare to stop and rest. Although these people were cultivators, the torture they suffered in the Jade Mountain prison was several times more than ordinary people. Now, they could not hold on any longer. Xiaohua's divine sense swept across the flying carriage and ordered them to rest. Then, he walked towards Li Xiang and cupped his fists. Fellow Taoist Li, this Xiao has some matters to attend to, So this Xiao was unable to invite fellow Taoists to ride on the flying carriage. I hope you can understand. Li Xiang was stunned. He did not expect that Xiao Hua's first words would be an apology. When he came back to his senses, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "The flying carriage is Taoist Zhao's own property. I have already received Taoist Zhao's grace. How can I care about such a small matter?" It's good that fellow Taoist doesn't mind," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Fellow Taoist, please rest for a moment and check out the situation of the disciples first." "All right," Li Xiang nodded and said. "Spiritual Master, please return to the flying carriage first. I will report to you later." "No need." Xiao Hua reached out his hand and took out some prepared clothes and some pills from his small universe bag. He handed them to Li Xiang and said, "This Xiao can just wait here. Thank you for your trouble, Taoist Xiao." Seeing that Xiao Hua had prepared so thoroughly, Li Xiang was very happy. He cupped his fists and received them. At this time, several disciples came over from behind him. After greeting Xiao Hua, they helped Li Xiang take the clothes and pills back. There was not much to say in the wilderness. Dozens of people helped each other remove the remaining iron chains and torture tools from their bodies. They simply tidied up and changed their clothes. After taking some pills refined by Xiao Hua and resting for a while, they gathered in front of Xiao Hua and bowed again to thank him. Seeing that everyone was still somewhat tired, Xiao Hua smiled and took out some spirit fruits and handed them to Li Xiang, saying, "Fellow Taoist Li, please distribute these to the disciples. After eating, we will rest for a while. It won't be too late to continue our journey when we are full of energy." Li Xiang saw that Xiao Hua respected him very much and did not directly overstep his boundaries. He was even happier in his heart. After receiving the spirit fruit, he first took one for himself, then had someone distribute it to the other disciples. He smiled and said, "Jinren Xiao is really considerate. It has been a long time since I, Li, ate such a good spirit fruit. It's nothing. Fellow Taoist Li suffered a lot in prison. These are all compensation." Xiao Hua waved his hand and looked at the people sitting on the ground. He asked, "How are the disciples?" When his disciples were mentioned, Li Xiang's face became bitter. He shook his head slightly and said, "The situation isn't too good." "Oh?" Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "Can you tell me the details?" "Actually," Li Xiang smiled bitterly and explained, "the Copper Pillar State is far from as benevolent as Taoist Xiao thinks. That day, they didn't think about destroying this Li Xiang's nascent soul. It's just that before they used the Confucian secret technique, they suddenly stopped. At that time, the jailer didn't plan to hide this Li Xiang's plan. He directly passed down the order of the Copper Pillar State's king, saying that he wanted to keep this Li Xiang's nascent soul for great use. That's why this Li Xiang's nascent soul was imprisoned. It's not like what the former Jade Mountain Guard general said. Keeping fellow Taoist's nascent soul for great use? Xiao Hua was somewhat confused. However, he also knew that Li Xiang couldn't possibly know the details. Asking would be pointless. Thus, he said, no matter what, fellow Taoist was able to keep his nascent soul. His 1,000 years of cultivation didn't turn into water. This is already very fortunate. What about your disciples? The disciples under this Li Xiang's tutelage aren't so lucky. Li Xiang said, there are 40 of them. Among them, there are 5 golden core cultivators. The rest are in the heartbeat and spirit silence realms. The 5 disciples' golden cores were completely destroyed. As for the other 40 disciples, more than half of their cultivations were destroyed. Now they are all mortals. It's that serious. Although Xiao Hua said it was serious, his expression didn't change. After all, as Li Xiang said, they were both enemies. He was able to kill Ling Qingde and force Yan Jijin to self-detonate. Naturally, the king wouldn't be merciful to Li Xiang and the others. Needless to say, the remaining half of the disciples were naturally all low-level disciples in the heartbeat realm. It was the same logic as how he couldn't completely kill all the ordinary black-armored army in front of the Jade Mountain. Li Xiang sighed. I am not talented. Although I have already cultivated to the nascent soul stage, I can be considered a Tao sect Grand Master of the hidden Immortal continent. However, I do not have any attainments in the Tao of alchemy. Furthermore, the Tao sect of the hidden Immortal continent is declining, and the spirit grass and pill formulas are all controlled by the Confucian cultivators. I'm afraid it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Oh. Xiao Hua looked at Li Xiang, who was not in a good mood, and laughed. Let those disciples whose cultivations have been destroyed come over. I will help them take a look, and maybe I can help you think of a way. Ah? Taoist Master Xiao? Li Xiang was startled, then immediately became wild with joy. He could not believe his own ears. After all, there was no special connection between strength and alchemy. He used to be the imperial advisor of a country, but he did not have such a method. Xiao Hua this. Although he was the imperial advisor, he was actually the imperial advisor in name. What kind of spirit grass could the Jiang country, which no longer existed, provide him with? Xiao Hua actually proposed to take a look, and even said that he would think of a way. He must have some confidence. Taoist Master, please wait a moment. Li Xiang anxiously turned his head and ordered his disciples to hurry over. Xiao Hua had some experience in recovering his cultivation. Nearly 30 cultivators checked one by one, and even asked in detail. Everyone could not suppress their joy as they stared at Xiao Hua's face. Unfortunately, other than a faint smile on Xiao Hua's face, there was still a faint smile. They could not see anything else, but it was this faint smile that gave them great confidence. Xiao Hua was extremely patient, and he checked for an entire hour before raising his head and smiling at Li Xiang. Fellow Taoist Li, there's no need to worry. After the shackles on your nascent soul are removed, I'll make a move with you, and the cultivations of these disciples will surely be able to recover completely. All right. Everyone's hearts had been hanging there the entire time. When Xiao Hua finally spat it out, they couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief, and their gazes became even more fervent. Taoist Master. Li Xiang was also relieved. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. To be honest, in the previous Jade Mountain, he had never thought that he would be able to come out alive, and he was really tired of the days of being the Imperial Advisor. He had been the Imperial Advisor twice. The first time was the Imperial Advisor of the Li Nation. He had racked his brains for the Li Nation, but in the end, the Li Nation was destroyed and he had no choice but to submit to the Jiang country. Fortunately, the Jiang country was also established by the Tao sect, and in order to survive, he had no choice but to become the second Imperial Advisor of the Jiang country. This was his second time as the Imperial Advisor. But even so, how could his disciples not have any friction with Qin Haoyue's disciples? Although the hidden Immortal continent did not allow Tao sect cultivators to recruit disciples and only allowed Tao sect disciples to serve the country, weren't these disciples their own disciples? How could Li Xiang and Qin Haoyue not know about the friction between their disciples? In addition, Qin Haoyue was not a magnanimous person, so Li Xiang was suspected and probed a lot. Even so, in the end, Li Xiang's cultivation did not increase by much, and instead, because of the destruction of the Jiang country, he was captured by the Copper Pillar State and brought to the Jade Mountain. Xiao Hua saved Li Xiang, and when Xiao Hua revealed his identity, Li Xiang already understood. He had already thought of an excuse, and even when Xiao Hua asked why his cultivation was not crippled, he spoke up for the Jade Mountain's guard general. It was obvious that he did not want to offend the Copper Pillar State, and he did not want to be the master of a country. That was really meaningless. However, Xiao Hua did not invite him to the flying carriage, nor did he mention anything about the Jiang country. Now, he even proposed to help his disciple recover his cultivation. Xiao Hua's words were good, he wanted to attack together with him, but he was very clear in his heart, how could he have such cultivation? This was Xiao Hua giving him face. All right, fellow Taoist Li, please get on the carriage. I have some things to ask you. Xiao Hua did not look at Li Xiang's hesitation, and invited with a smile. If there is nothing special about your disciple, we should hurry on our way as soon as possible, and talk as we go. After all, if we can reach the Black Cloud Ridge earlier, we can help them recover their cultivation earlier. -12. Chapter 3561. Seeing Xiaohua like this, Li Xiang could only sigh and smile. I don't dare to ask for advice. Taoist Xiao, please. Then, Li Xiang ordered the disciples to get on their horses and head towards Black Cloud Ridge. Although the disciples couldn't fully recover, when they heard that reaching Black Cloud Ridge a day earlier meant that they could recover their cultivation a day earlier, how could they not get on their horses? Even the disciples who still had their cultivation hurriedly activated their cultivation techniques, hoping to be able to fly as soon as possible. Xiaohua waved his hand and the Pegasus flew down. Xiaohua ordered Lu Yi and Wang Beifei to get off and ride the horse that Li Xiang was riding before, while he invited Li Xiang to get on the flying carriage. When the Pegasus rose into the sky again, Li Xiang and the other disciples also started to hurry on. Ai Taoist Xiao. Li Xiang sat on the flying carriage and looked at the shining Pegasus in front of him and sighed. Using this Pegasus, isn't it too ostentatious? Aren't you afraid that Confucian cultivators will be jealous? Hee, this Xiao has done many things that would make Confucian cultivators jealous. This one won't make a difference. Xiaohua laughed, and didn't mind. This one won't make a difference, Li Xiang said with a smile. Taoist Xiao took the Zhu clan's ancestral item right in front of me. Although this Li doesn't know what it is, since even the king of Bronze Pillar country was moved, it must be something that Confucian cultivators would be jealous of. This Xiao also doesn't know what it is. Xiaohua clapped his hand, and a fingernail-sized bone appeared in his hand. At that time, this Xiao only thought that this item would be of some use to this Xiao, and could also help the pitiful Zhu family resist the disaster, so I accepted it. Ai, that Zhu clan's head is too calculative. Li Xiang was naturally more calculative than Xiaohua and sighed slightly. This item is hidden in the flesh. If this Li guessed correctly, it should be condensed together with the bone. Even if you use the clear eyes technique, you wouldn't be able to find it. The previous general of Jade Mountain used who knows how many methods to interrogate the whereabouts of this item, but he never thought that it would be in someone's calf. Moreover, the moment the Zhu clan's head escaped danger, he immediately took out this item without hesitation. He kept saying that he was grateful to Taoist Xiao, but he really had evil intentions. If this Li was this Li would definitely turn around and leave at that time and ignore him. Taoist Xiao is too kind. Taoist Li's head's hand? Xiaohua asked with interest. Li Xiang replied without hesitation. Even if I take this item, I will definitely make the generals of the Jade Mountain swear a blood oath. I will even force the king of the Bronze Pillar country to swear that no one will speak of this matter. That Zhu family head will go for wool and come home shorn. Haha, it's not that bad, Xiaohua said with a smile. Sometimes, suffering losses is a blessing. If not for the fact that Zhu Qing was forced into a dead end, he might not have handed over the inheritance of his family to this Xiao. The reason why he did this was because he was thinking about the future of the Zhu clan, right? Xiao TTS head SSS have S's Zhao's Xiang's. SAS Xiaohua laughed. Ha ha ha, fellow Taoist Li is really good at joking. S Zhao's head S Zhao's. Don't even mention how much trouble this Xiao will have to bear for this item. Li Xiang laughed. Even the Buddha Kingdom's old Baldi wouldn't be able to do such a thing. Xiaohua put away the bone. Li Xiang didn't ask any more questions. Xiaohua waited for Li Xiang to sit down before saying, If Taoist Xiao is at ease, then let me take a look at your nascent soul and see if I can help you break the seal. Of course I'm at ease. Li Xiang shook his head. But the seal on my nascent soul was made by a Confucian cultivator. I can't sense my nascent soul at all. Even if I use a technique, my nascent soul won't move. I'm afraid I'll have to find a Confucian cultivator's friend and ask them to help. But then, he smiled bitterly. Moreover, this seal was made by the Copper Pillar State's Lingqinga. If I want to break it, I'll have to find someone with a higher cultivation than him. I'm afraid they'll have to be at the 5th level of the Origin Energy Great Grandmaster. Secondly, the Great Grandmaster has to be afraid of the Copper Pillar States. Difficult. But then, Li Xiang suddenly froze. In his mind, the scene of Xiaohua spitting out a flying sword and chopping off the chains on his body appeared. Then, he thought about how Xiaohua took the Zhu clan's ancestral treasure without hesitation. He almost blurted out, "Taoist master? Could it be, you also know Confucian cultivation techniques?" "Just SOSO. Xiaohua smiled. "My cultivation isn't good enough. I can barely kill Lingqinga." "Ah? Lingqinga was killed by Taoist Xiao?" Li Xiang was even more shocked. "Yes, Yan Jijin is also dead," Xiaohua said indifferently. "Just in front of the Jade Mountain." Li Xiang was stunned for a long time before coming back to his senses. He nodded and said, "I finally understand why the Jade Mountain's guardian general was so respectful to Taoist Xiao. Even General Hao Hu stood at the top of the mountain and didn't dare to say a word. Oh, looks like Zhu Qing really went for wool and came home shorn. This is called suffering a loss is a blessing," Xiaohua corrected. "Now, Taoist Xiao can rest assured and let me take a look." Of course, of course." At this point, how could Li Xiang not be at ease with Xiaohua? How could he not let Xiaohua take a look? After obtaining Li Xiang's permission, Xiaohua extended his hand and pointed his index finger at Li Xiang's lower dantian. A thin, almost inaudible crystal thread came out from his index finger. After watching the crystal thread enter Li Xiang's body, Xiaohua closed his eyes and seemed to be thinking. Li Xiang looked at Xiaohua's expression. It was actually the same as the previous disciples, with a smile on his face. Li Xiang's heart also rose to his throat. Fortunately, after half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua opened his eyes and said with a smile, "Taoist Li, this restriction was set up by the Bronze Pillar State using the 5 brocade cloud diagram. If you don't know the 5 brocade cloud diagram, I'm afraid it won't be easy to break it." "Ah?" Li Xiang clearly hadn't heard of the 5 brocade cloud diagram. His face revealed disappointment. He forced a smile and said, "Many thanks, Taoist Xiao. Since you know the origin of the restriction, I'll find someone to break it later." "Haha, Taoist Li, why didn't you let me finish?" Xiaohua smiled and said, "This 5 brocade cloud diagram was also the killing array that Lingqinga had set up in the Black Cloud Ridge that day. This Xiao killed Lingqinga and just happened to destroy this array. That array diagram is now in this Zhao's hands." Phew! Li Xiang let out a breath of relief. He wasn't surprised anymore. After all, Xiaohua gave him too many surprises. "Oh?" Xiaohua saw that Li Xiang's face didn't show any joy. He felt strange and asked, "What? Could it be that Taoist Li doesn't believe me?" Li Xiang helplessly shook his head. "Taoist Xiao, I feel that there isn't any difficulty for you at all. I'm too lazy to be happy." "Haha, Taoist Li's words are good. I like it very much." Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, "If Taoist Li is anxious, I can break the restriction in your body right now." "Many thanks, Taoist Xiao." It would be a lie to say that he wasn't anxious. A nascent soul cultivator suddenly turned into immortal. The sense of insecurity in his heart was far greater than others. Li Xiang hurriedly cupped his hands and said. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "However, I'm afraid that I can't let Taoist Li see the method to break the restriction. No worries." Li Xiang hurriedly said with a smile. "Right now, I'm the fish and Taoist Xiao is the knife. As long as Taoist Xiao doesn't chop me into fish paste, it's fine." Haha. Xiaohua laughed and patted the heavenly horse. The heavenly horse neighed and rushed into the sky with the flying carriage. In a moment, it disappeared from everyone's eyes. The restriction on Li Xiang's nascent soul came from the 5 brocade cloud diagram. Not only could the 5 brocade cloud diagram be broken, even the 5 Qi thunder could also break it. Xiaohua even thought about whether or not he should use the heaven cleansing earth technique to try it. However, seeing that the nascent soul in Li Xiang's lower dantian was already extremely weak, Xiaohua was afraid that he might injure this nascent soul and damage Li Xiang's Dao foundation. As the saying goes, those who don't know how to do it are not difficult for those who know how to do it. In Li Xiang's eyes, the seemingly extremely difficult restriction was broken by Xiaohua in the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Li Xiang opened his eyes and sensed his body. His nascent soul had already returned to normal, and there was nothing abnormal about his body. Although he didn't know if Xiaohua did anything to him, looking at Xiaohua's very calm expression, he didn't think too much. After all, Xiaohua didn't need to go through so much trouble. Taoist Xiao, do you have a jade phosphorus pill? After checking his nascent soul, Li Xiang didn't hold back and simply asked Xiaohua. Xiaohua shook his head. I don't have a jade phosphorus pill. Li Xiang was slightly disappointed and said with a smile, my nascent soul was injured. If I cultivate in peace, I'm afraid it will take several years to recover. When I was captured, all my medicinal pills, magic weapons, and other things fell into the bronze pillar state. When Taoist Xiao rescued me, the guarding general didn't return my Qianquan bag. Presumably, those things aren't in the Jade Mountain, and my jade phosphorus pill is in my Qianquan bag. I don't have a jade phosphorus pill, but I have a nourishing spirit pill and a clear li pill. Xiaohua said with a smile and took out 2 jade bottles. Nourishing spirit pill? Clear li pill? Li Xiang frowned. He had never heard of the names of these 2 medicinal pills. Oh, nourishing spirit pill is used to repair divine sense, and clear li pill is used by golden core cultivators. Xiaohua explained. I don't have medicinal pills for nascent soul cultivators like me, so I ask for fellow Taoist Li's forgiveness. Li Xiang smiled bitterly. How could the medicinal pills used by golden core cultivators and nascent soul cultivators be the same? However, when he thought about it, Xiaohua wasn't a real state preceptor, so how could he have real medicinal pills? Fellow Taoist Li, take it first. It's better than nothing. Xiaohua handed over the jade bottles and said, if fellow Taoist Li has the pill recipe, I can actually refine a jade phosphorus pill for fellow Taoist Li. The jade phosphorus pill's pill recipe is in the hands of state preceptor Qin Haoyue. I don't have it. Li Xiang's words were not without resentment. When I was the state preceptor in Li country, I also entrusted others to refine medicinal pills. The pill recipe I obtained later is also in my Qianquan bag. -12. Chapter 3562. After Li Xiang finished speaking, he looked at the jade bottle that Xiaohua handed to him. After pondering for a bit, he reached out and took it. After all, Xiaohua was right. Something is better than nothing. His nascent soul is weak, any kind of medicinal pill is fine. Looking at the ugly medicinal pill in his hand, Li Xiang's face revealed a strange expression as expected. However, after he took the soul-nourishing pill, his face became brilliant. At first, he was stunned, then he became ecstatic. Immediately after, he sat down cross-legged and didn't speak anymore. This cultivation lasted for 2 hours. Xiaohua also didn't disturb Li Xiang. He drove the flying carriage down from the sky and flew above the heads of the disciples who were galloping on their horses. Woo-woo! Above Li Xiang's head, a faint buzzing sound could be heard. Then, a whirlwind appeared in midair. The whirlwind grew bigger and bigger, from a few feet wide to several feet wide. Then, the pressure of a yuanying stage cultivator appeared and spread out in all directions. Xiaohua didn't care, but Li Xiang's disciples below him were overjoyed. One by one, they pulled their horses and waited on the ground. Under Li Xiang's pressure, the horses' hooves trembled, as if they couldn't stand steadily. Hee! Xiaohua slightly smiled and patted the back of the Pegasus. The Pegasus once again soared into the sky and flew for several hundred feet before stopping. Li Xiang's pressure continued to increase. In the end, even the Pegasus was somewhat uneasy, snorting from its mouth and nose. Xiaohua slightly frowned, pondering whether he should wake Li Xiang or not. Fortunately, after another moment, Li Xiang slowly opened his eyes. That pressure was immediately absorbed into Li Xiang's Naiwen palace like a falling tide. Congratulations, fellow Taoist Li, Xiaohua said with a smile. Alas, I still have to thank Taoist Master Xiao. Li Xiang couldn't help but sigh again. I underestimated Taoist Master's so-called gold core medicinal pill. It actually has such a strong healing effect on my divine sense. I feel that my divine sense is going to have a breakthrough again. Then I have to congratulate fellow Taoists even more, Xiao Hua said. There are still many in the jade bottle, enough for fellow Taoists to use. And I'm now even more curious about fellow Taoists' clearly pill. Li Xiang couldn't help but open the other jade bottle and poured out an equally ugly clearly pill. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Fellow Taoist, you should stay here first. Fellow Taoist disciple is very concerned about you. These children have really suffered under this Li. Li Xiang's face revealed a smile when he mentioned his disciples. As the heavenly horse landed, Li Xiang and the rest of his disciples were all laughing and congratulating their imperial advisor. In reality, their master's cultivation had recovered. Li Xiang said a few words of encouragement, and everyone continued to move forward. In anticipation, Li Xiang took the clear Li Dan, but this time the clear Li Dan did not give Li Xiang a special surprise. Although the medicinal power of the clear Li Dan was very good, it was just a drop in the bucket for a Yuanying stage cultivator. Seeing that Li Xiang had only opened his eyes for a moment, Xiao Hua naturally knew that Li Xiang was disappointed. However, he just smiled and didn't say anything. How could he not take a good pill himself? Although he had the metal essence thriving marrow now, he did not dare to give it to Li Xiang. Spiritual items of heaven and earth were not something that ordinary cultivators could use at will. Although Li Xiang's meridians were tough, they were still far from Xiao Hua's. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth contained in the metal essence thriving marrow would definitely cause Li Xiang's meridians to collapse like a mountain flood. As for the 5 Qi righteous thunder, not to mention Li Xiang's Yuanying, even if Li Xiang used his own life magic treasure, he would not be able to resist it. Wanting to use the 5 Qi righteous thunder to refine his Yuanying was simply dreaming. Li Xiang was helpless and could only continue to take the clear Li Dan. After a few days, the Black Cloud Ridge was already in sight. Along the way, there were no pursuers from the Copper Pillar State. Instead, they met a few groups of Confucian cultivators. Confucian cultivators were indeed somewhat different from Taoist disciples. Most of the Confucian cultivators only revealed admiration in their eyes. They took a few more glances at Xiao Hua's heavenly horse and flying chariot, but did not look for trouble. Only 2 or 3 people who were obviously reindeer followed for a while. When Xiao Hua sighed with emotion, they were frightened by Li Xiang's spiritual sense and fled. This is the Black Cloud Ridge? Although he had yet to reach the Black Cloud Ridge, Li Xiang could not help but release his spiritual sense. After all, Li Xiang naturally knew the original appearance of the Black Cloud Ridge, and even knew about the Black Cloud Ridge's origin stone mines. Furthermore, when he was at the previous Jade Mountain, Xiao Hua had already mentioned the Black Cloud Ridge, so how could Li Xiang not be curious? Seeing the current appearance of the Black Cloud Ridge, Li Xiang did not want to be surprised, but he was still surprised. How could this be the Black Cloud Ridge in his impression? Xiao Hua laughed and said, "This is naturally not the real Black Cloud Ridge. Fellow Taoist Li, take a closer look." Oh? Li Xiang was slightly startled. He released his spiritual sense again and carefully probed. But after a full meal, Li Xiang suddenly raised his eyebrows, opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything. He looked again, and in the end, he sighed deeply and said, "The Taoist master actually set up a great formation in the entire Black Cloud Ridge. This is truly something that I would never have dreamed of. Even the entire Jiang country would not be able to complete it." He he. Xiao Hua laughed and urged the heaven horse to descend. Li Xiang suddenly thought of something and hurriedly asked, "Oh right, this Black Cloud Ridge is underground. There seems to be an origin stone mine. Jiang country, Copper Pillar country, and Jiasa country are mining it separately. Let's not talk about the Copper Pillar country. What about the Jiasa country? Naturally, they were chased away by this Xiao Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "Previously, the soldiers of the Jiang country had all submitted to the Jia Sa country after the destruction of the Jiang country. Why would I keep them?" "Oh." Li Xiang nodded absent-mindedly. He finally understood what Xiaohua meant when he said, "I've done a lot of things that make Confucian cultivators jealous." This origin stone mine was probably even more eye-catching than the Zhu family's inheritance, right? Furthermore, Xiaohua had even openly offended the Jia Sa country, which was the closest to the Black Cloud Ridge and was established by the Buddhist sect. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the Black Cloud Ridge and did not see any spirit demon patrolling, Xiaohua was a little displeased. He raised his hand and was about to cast a spell when he heard a sharp eagle cry from high up in the sky. Two shadows that were about 3 meters in size descended from the clouds, and the wings of the two birds of prey blocked the sunlight above Xiaohua and the others. "Oh, that's right, there are still 3 demon kings in the Black Cloud Ridge," Li Xiang suddenly realized. "Could it be that Taoist Master Xiao killed them all? Is this Xiao that cruel?" Xiaohua pinched his chin, looking very innocent. The 2 birds of prey circled a few times above Xiaohua's head, and with 2 cries they descended towards the Black Cloud Ridge. A moment later, the 2 birds of prey charged into the sky again, still hidden behind the clouds. On the Black Cloud Ridge, lights suddenly flashed, and the scene in front of everyone's eyes twisted strangely a few times. From midair to the ground, a crack dozens of meters in size appeared out of nowhere. This crack was like a large door, flowing with light and splendor. The 3 demon kings brought a dozen little demons, and behind them, Qin Xiaoyao, Xiaojian, Chanling, and the others flew out, respectfully standing on both sides of the door. When Xiaohua's horse landed, they all bowed and said, "Welcome back, Master! Get up, see who's here!" Xiaohua smiled and stood up, helping everyone up, and flew down from the flying carriage with Li Xiang. "Junior greets Taoist Master Li. We greet State Preceptor Li." The Black Bear Spirit and the others ignored Li Xiang. Qin Xiaoyao, the Channeling Princess, and the other people of Jiang country were very happy to see Li Xiang, and hurriedly bowed. "Ha ha, all of you, get up!" Li Xiang waved his hand, looking much more practiced than Xiaohua. He said with a smile, "Seeing you all safe and sound, this old man is reassured." Then Li Xiang bowed to the Channeling Princess alone and said, "This Li greets the princess." The Channeling Princess's eyes were slightly red, and she hurriedly returned the greeting. "State Preceptor, no need to be so courteous. Channeling is no longer a princess. In the future, I will have to rely on State Preceptor and Master." "Ha ha!" The Channeling Princess's words naturally had a double meaning, but Li Xiang did not respond. As they spoke, Li Xiang's disciples arrived on their horses. Qin Xiaoyao and the others were very happy, and hurried forward to greet them, helping them down from their horses. "Xiaoyao, help arrange for Taoist Master Li's disciples. We will talk in the cave." Xiaohua looked at the joyful crowd and ordered, "Yes, this disciple knows." Qin Xiaoyao immediately answered, "Also, Black Bear, prepare a banquet to welcome Taoist Master Li and the others." "Yes, this lowly one knows. Old Master, do not worry." The Black Bear Spirit patted his chest, and left with the Golden Eagle and White Lion. Li Xiang looked at the orderly Black Cloud Ridge, and the appearance of the 3 Yao Kings. He was filled with curiosity. These Yao could be called kings. Their strength spoke for themselves, and their personalities were unruly. It was easy to kill them, but difficult to make them lower themselves. He did not understand how Xiaohua had done it. After entering the cave, the people of Black Cloud Ridge took their seats. Lu Yi and Wang Yifei stood on either side of Xiaohua. Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede did not go back into the space, and stayed on their shoulders. Li Xiang's seat was not far from Xiaohua's. It was a guest seat. Li Xiang was very satisfied and sat down as well. Looking at the magnificent cave, he sighed. "Spiritual Master Xiao, I've been to this Black Cloud Ridge before. It was not like this at all. I didn't expect that in Spiritual Master Zhao's hands, it would turn something rotten into something magical. "Ha ha, this is not my doing!" Xiaohua laughed and said, "This is a big gift from Lingqinga." Saying this, Xiaohua told him about the situation of Lingqinga setting up the array in Black Cloud Ridge, and then briefly described what had happened. Finally, he glanced at the cave and said, "Taoist Masterly, now everything is ready in Black Cloud Ridge. We only need one thing to help Princess Ling establish her country. Can you give me a hand?" "This?" Li Xiang smiled bitterly, knowing that what was to come would come in the end. Although his cultivation had been restored, many of his disciples had not. Xiaohua had used this weakness to make him submit, so he really couldn't refuse. However, he didn't want to repeat the same mistakes as before, so he tried to shirk the responsibility. "This matter is of great importance, so let this Li carefully consider it." -12. Chapter 3563. "And that's true." Xiaohua did not care and said with a smile, "When this old man goes to the Jade Pavilion conference, the matter of guarding Black Cloud Ridge is of great importance. Xiao Yao's cultivation is not enough, and this old man is worried. So this old man wants to ask fellow Taoists to help this old man. Since fellow Taoist wants to consider, then wait until this old man recovers fellow Taoist disciples' cultivation, and tell this old man when we depart." "Ah?" Li Xiang gaped and said curiously, "Taoist wants I to help you guard for a few days?" "Yes? What does fellow Taoist think this old man means by asking fellow Taoist to help this old man?" Xiaohua pretended to be surprised. "Oh." Li Xiang was slightly confused. He had not expected Xiaohua's request to be so low that he could not respond. The Changling princess did not lose the chance to say in a low voice, "Old master, imperial tutor means, oh, this old man understands." Xiaohua slapped his forehead and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Li, do not think too much. This old man is not good at state affairs, and has no experience as an imperial tutor. Changling once said that they would ask fellow Taoist Li to come out again to be the second imperial tutor of Jiang country. So this old man had Xiao Yao investigate fellow Taoist's whereabouts, and this old man came to Jade Mountain. However, this old man saw that fellow Taoist was not interested in being an imperial tutor, so this old man did not mention it. Whether fellow Taoist Li becomes an imperial tutor has nothing to do with this old man. This will depend on Changling's charm. This old man will not interfere. Even if fellow Taoist is not willing to stay in Black Cloud Ridge, after the banquet, this old man will immediately help fellow Taoist recover his disciple's cultivation, and fellow Taoist can take his disciple and leave Black Cloud Ridge. Hehe, with the power of Black Cloud Ridge's formation, this old man believes that Xiao Yao and the others can last until this old man returns from the Jade Pavilion conference. Old master, do not worry. This disciple is indebted to old master for saving my life, and will not hesitate to die for old master." Qin Xiaoyao hurriedly got up and answered with one knee on the ground. Li Xiang's face burned. He naturally knew that Qin Xiaoyao's words were meant for him to hear, but he couldn't refute it. What Qin Xiaoyao said was the truth. Moreover, Qin Xiaoyao was his junior disciple. If Qin Xiaoyao could say such words, then what should he do with the help of Xiaohua? Fortunately, without waiting for Li Xiang to think more, Xiaohua smiled and said, "I understand your thoughts. Everyone has the right to choose. I will never force people. Let's go. I think the banquet at Black Bear's side has already been set up. Today, we will only welcome Junanli with a feast. Nothing else." With that, Xiaohua pulled Li Xiang's hand and walked out of the cave. Since ancient times, there had never been a banquet that was not perfect, and there were naturally no guests who did not enjoy themselves. Even the legendary Hongmen banquet was the same, and the Black Cloud Ridge's banquet was no exception. After a night of drinking, the spirit demons were lying all over the mountains and plains, and it was truly unsightly. The soldiers of Jiang country were still considered reserved. In the morning, they faced the morning sun and spat out the old and accepted the new. Taoist Master Xiao. Standing in front of the cave, Li Xiang smiled and said to Xiaohua, Qin Xiaoyao and the others submitting to Taoist Master is not out of my expectations, but the 3 demon kings of the Black Cloud Ridge and their demon soldiers submitting to Taoist Master is out of my expectations. These demons, to be honest, if Taoist Master Xiao does not restrain them enough, it will cause a lot of trouble for Taoist Master. Yes, this Xiao knows. Xiaohua nodded and pointed at the demons, saying, These demons have submitted to this Xiao the most, and have always been in fear. Previously, there was Lengqinga forcing them from behind, and then there was the Confucian cultivators' formation killing them. Recently, I heard from the Black Bear Spirit that many Confucian cultivators have begun to have designs on the Black Cloud Ridge. This old man is unwilling to let Qin Xiaoyao and the others go out to face the enemy, so these demons have to take the lead. Although the casualties are not great, these demons need to vent their emotions. A banquet should be useful. Of course, Taoist Master Li's reminder is in my heart. Since these demons have submitted to my fortune gate, this Xiao will definitely restrain them and not harm the hidden immortal continent. Hearing Xiaohua mention the fortune gate, Li Xiang was not surprised. After all, the current fortune gate's outer disciples were all Dao cultivators from Jian country. He had only been in the Black Cloud Ridge for half a day, and he already knew a lot of things. Li Xiang thought for a moment and said, Taoist Master Xiao, this Li has an idea, but I don't know if I should say it. Please speak. Xiaohua laughed. He was eager for Li Xiang to say more. The hidden immortal continent forbids Dao sect disciples from establishing sects. This is public opinion. Although Taoist Master Zhao's cultivation is profound, compared to the accumulation of Confucian cultivators who have been passed down for who knows how many years, there is still a big gap. Li Xiang did not hide anything and said, Taoist Master Xiao certainly wants to establish a Dao sect, but in a situation where we cannot fight against the entire hidden immortal continent, it is very inappropriate to rashly bring up the fortune gate. Oh? Then what does Taoist Master think? Xiaohua frowned, his face full of worry. Li Xiang laughed and said, Since it is not allowed to establish a sect, then take charge of a country. Now that Jiang country has been destroyed, if Taoist Master Xiao establishes Jiang country again, naturally you can name it Fortune country. You can even call it Xiao country. Taoist Master Xiao is building this country into an empire, with vast territory. Taoist Master Li. Xiaohua interrupted Li Xiang's words, shaking his head and saying, This Xiao has already promised the Changling princess to help her restore her country. Wouldn't doing this chill her heart? This Xiao also become a person who goes back on his words. That's even simpler. Li Xiang laughed and said, Taoist Master Xiao can just support another country. Yes, that's true. Xiaohua woke from a dream, slapped his forehead, but then he grimaced. The problem isn't controlling a country different from a sect? There has to be a country ruler. If there is a country ruler, wouldn't there be a rift between us? Li Xiang laughed and said, Use Taoist Master Zhao's own bloodline to be the country ruler. This Xiao country is justified. Forget it. Let's talk about it later. As Xiaohua spoke, he actually walked into the trap. He simply waved his hand and said, This Xiao made a sect to simplify things, to be a hands-off shopkeeper. Now that I heard Taoist Master Li say that he also wants to marry and have children, wouldn't that be troublesome? Ha! Li Xiang also laughed. The two spoke a few more words. Seeing the sun rise from the mountain peak, Xiaohua smiled and said, Taoist Master Li, send a disciple up. You and I will see how to help them recover their cultivation. All right. Li Xiang saw that Xiaohua was so straightforward and was happy in his heart. He transmitted his voice, and not long after, a Jindan disciple came up. Xiaohua took Li Xiang and the disciple into the quiet room. Xiaohua only slightly checked the injury and already understood that this disciple's Jindan was broken. His lower dantian was pierced by the sword qi of the Confucian cultivator, and some of the meridians in his body were also cut off by the sword qi. As long as the meridians and dantian were repaired, Jindan would not be difficult. So Xiaohua pretended to discuss with Li Xiang for a moment, took out the heaven-mending pill, explained to Li Xiang how to use it, and let Li Xiang help his disciple. Li Xiang looked at the pill in his hand, his mouth bitter. How could he not understand that as long as he had this heaven-mending pill, why would he need to do it himself? Why would Xiaohua need to discuss with him? He really couldn't understand. How many elixirs could Xiaohua have in this small qianquan bag? After the disciple took the heaven-mending pill, Li Xiang used his divine sense to explore for a moment. He knew that the heaven-mending pill's effect was godly, and it was repairing the meridians and dantian at a speed visible to the naked eye. But then, Li Xiang worriedly asked, Taoist Master Xiao, this pill is really miraculous, but do you know how many? Enough. Seeing this, Xiaohua simply clapped his hand, and a sufficient number of jade bottles were sent in front of Li Xiang. Li Xiang was so shocked that a walnut could be stuffed in his mouth. A single heaven-mending pill was already incomparably precious, but Xiaohua actually gave him dozens of pills the moment he opened his mouth. Too much, Li Xiang muttered. His raised hand was as heavy as 1,000 caddies. The jade bottles were easy to put away, but his heart was too heavy. No matter, Xiaohua said with a smile. Everyone in Black Cloud Ridge is more precious than this pill. Hearing Xiaohua's words that did not treat him as an outsider, and thinking back to Qin Haoyue's guarded appearance, Li Xiang's heart was somewhat shaken. Taoist Master Li, you help the disciples recover their cultivation here. I will go take a look at the Source Stone Mine. Xiaohua stood up and said with a smile, That is the vital point of Black Cloud Ridge, we cannot lose it. After saying this, without waiting for Li Xiang to speak, Xiaohua stood up and walked out of the quiet room. Outside the quiet room, Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei stood below the high platform, both sitting cross-legged with their eyes slightly closed. Wang Bianfei was somewhat lively as he scurried around, but the god power centipede was quite well behaved as it lay on the ground, the black qi around its body expanding and contracting as if it was breathing, as if it was cultivating. Seeing this, Xiaohua smiled mightily. With a wave of his hand, Little Silver and the god power centipede both flew onto his shoulder. Then, Xiaohua rode a magic cloud and flew towards the Source Stone Mine. Fortunately, although many of the demons in the front mountain had not yet sobered up, the entrance to the Source Stone Mine was guarded by a white lion. From time to time, demons would enter and exit the mine, and it looked like they were mining source stones. Seeing Xiaohua fly over, the white lion immediately came over and respectfully greeted him. Greetings, Master. Rise! White Lion, Xiaohua said with a smile. Why are you up so early? Didn't you drink last night? Hearing Xiaohua mention wine, the white lion unconsciously stuck out its scarlet tongue and licked its lips. Smiling, it said, Master, of course this little one drank. However, this little one felt that the spirit wine that Master bestowed upon this little one was rather rare, so I left some for my subordinates who profited from it. I didn't enjoy much of it myself. Moreover, it's this little one's turn to be on duty today. This little one didn't dare to delay Master's matters, so I came early. Good. Xiaohua was very happy to hear this. Although the black bear spirit was loyal, it was really lazy and especially timid. This white lion, on the other hand, seemed to be a cautious and attentive one. Saying this, Xiaohua flipped his hand and took out a jade pot, handing it to the white lion. This is a reward from this old man. The spirit wine in Xiaohua's space was now brewed by Xiaogu out of boredom. The wine's fragrance assailed the nostrils, and the color was sparkling and translucent. It was who knew how many times better than the wine brewed by ordinary cultivators. No wonder a demon like the White Lion was greedy. 12. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.